Hello and welcome to Legalbytes. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legalbytes merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone doing? I see so many folks in the chat. I'm so excited. You never know how things are going to go after the trial madness and everything is over, how many people are going to be sticking around, how many people are deciding, okay, well, the trial's over, I'm done with it. Even though right now we, of course, are talking about the trial more, but yeah, it's been nice. It's been nice. I appreciate all the love that I've been getting from people. I've gotten some messages from folks saying, we miss you. You haven't been live streaming. Are you okay? It's only been a few days, but it's been a nice, restful few days, and I really appreciate that you guys are here. I love all the blue hearts in the chat, guys. I love it. I love it. So anyhow, I'm really, really thrilled to see folks sticking around and excited for more conversation, more content. Today is going to be a little bit of a wrap up on the Depp v. Heard trial. Of course, there's a little bit more Depp litigation because he's got a case where he is actually a defendant in Los Angeles. It's set to go to trial July 25th. I'm going to keep some eyes on that one because it's also very interesting. I will be in California later this week, actually. So, and then for quite a few weeks after that. But I will unfortunately be planning to leave a few weeks before this trial picks up. But I don't know. I've thought about it. I've thought about the possibility of maybe flying back out just to watch the trial. Have I just not had enough trial? I don't know. But anyhow, it is a very interesting case. We don't actually know if it will end up going to trial. Maybe it'll settle out. I've seen some accounts from some other witnesses that suggest that maybe this should settle out and not go to trial because this might not be a favorable verdict for the plaintiff in that case. Johnny Depp is the defendant. So we will see. We will see. But anyhow, I wanted to talk. I know that this is a little bit of a late thing. Most people have talked about the verdict. They've talked about the media response to the verdict and all that kind of stuff. But since I basically had to reboot my whole brain after 8 weeks of trial streams and 8 weeks of daily recaps, I wanted to take a chance to talk about it a little bit here as well, because I did get some folks asking what happened with the verdict. I still don't quite understand what it means, what happened. And I think that also kind of spills out into the media response as well. I think that there's probably a lot of misunderstanding about this verdict that is not just people that have watched, but also people that evidently haven't watched. And I do see in the chat a question, what happened to your thumb? Well, today this is proof that today I had to take Astra, our little kitty, to the vet. She does not appreciate even being held. She's still kind of half feral, to be honest. I love her to pieces, but she also loves me into literal pieces. So we had to take her in for a few tests and whatnot. She's probably fine, but we had to take her in for a few tests, and she did not appreciate it. Whenever I take her to the vet, I always have to tell them why we're bringing her, and then basically a nice little warning that she's also kind of a crazy cat. The crazy cat meaning that they have to give a crazy cat bag to her. Anyhow, Holmes never has that problem. He's the chillest cat ever. But anyhow, so yeah, that's that. But thank you for your concern about the Band-Aid there. So it's actually, oddly enough, not even the worst scratch that she's ever given me before. Having to try to force feed her medicine is a nightmare. And hopefully I never have to do that again. Anyhow, let's get to this verdict. So if you guys remember, I'm assuming that you were following along with this trial if you're watching this live stream, right? So we don't need to go over all of the facts of the case, the facts of the trial, but we can do just a little bit of a reminder that there were three statements that were alleged defamatory, that Johnny Depp alleged sorry, let me back up for a second. Okay, so Johnny Depp alleged Amber Heard made 3 defamatory statements about him in the Washington Post, right? There was the title, there was another one that was referring back a couple of years, and then there was another one after that. So she then turned and countersued against him and alleged that there were three statements that were made on Johnny's behalf that she alleges were defamatory. Those were made by Adam Waldman, his attorney. We had all kinds of discussions on this channel about the litigation privilege and why does that not fit into the litigation privilege. I've wrapped my brain around it several times, and I'm still not even entirely convinced that this is a proper situation for defamation because of that litigation privilege. But I think that ultimately what happened was, because these were statements that were made to the press and not in a court and not in a filing, even though it had to do with litigation, it was in the scope of his representation during litigation. And he was being an attorney that was speaking to the press about this litigation. Everyone understood what the context was. Still, I guess that the distinction probably was that he was speaking to the press. So anyhow, the verdict. In the end, the jury found that Johnny Depp's alleged statements against Amber Heard, that all 3 statements that he alleged were defamatory, were in fact defamatory. Basically meaning that her statements that he is a domestic abuser and that he abused her in all kinds of ways, physically, emotionally, sexually, the ways that she described in those statements were untrue, and they were in fact defamatory. So as a result, they awarded him $10 million in compensatory damages, $5 million in punitive damages. So that's the first bit. Number 1, what are compensatory damages? Compensatory damages comes from the word compensate, right? So compensate meaning that you are paying someone for something that they have lost. So when we're talking about defamation, we're talking about usually some form of economic loss that they have had as a result of those defamatory statements. A lot of times it has to do with work that was lost. Either they lost their job, they lost their salary, or they lost certain Hollywood film projects. So that's why there was time that was spent talking about Pirates of the Caribbean 6, the fact that he had made $25 million on POTC 5, the fact that he made so much in 2017, and then 2018, 2019, all of a sudden everything went away and he had to really fight for the small projects that he was able to get. So that's what the compensatory damages is getting at, is trying to compensate him for what he has lost as a result. Punitive damages are basically just where the jury looks at the defendant and says, you know what, screw you, you messed up, you did this horrible, awful, terrible thing, and we want to punish you. That's where punitive damages comes from, is punish. So it's just they very much dislike what the defendant did, and they want to send a message to the defendant. That's what punitive damages are for. Now, in Virginia, there is a statutory limit on punitive damages. So that statutory limit is $350,000. A lot of people have asked, so then what is that? What happens to the rest of the $4.65 million out of the punitive damages? What happens to those? Well, they basically go away. It's like, think of it like you have a big jar, right? You have a jar for compensatory damages, and those can go up to $50 million because that's what he's alleged, right? He alleged in his complaint that he's due $50 million for the defamation. So that jar is about $50 million full. They put in $10 million, so that fits in there. And then you've got the punitive damages jar, putting sand in it. Let's say it's a jar of sand. So you want to put in enough sand to fill $5 million into this punitive damages jar. But the punitive damages jar only fits $350,000 worth of sand. So everything else just falls out. So jar of dirt. Thanks, guys. I messed it up. I even had the whole cheeky reference and everything that I wanted to have, and I even still messed it up. Thanks, guys. um, or jar. Yeah. Well, we're not going to say the other jar that came up during the trial. Uh, so yeah. So he's got these two jars of dirt at this point, right? So he's got the jar of dirt that could fit 50 million that they put 10 million into. That fits. And then he's got the other jar of dirt that could fit $350,000. They tried to put in 5 million, but the rest of it just falls out. So that's what he's able to walk away with, is both of those jars. I hope that makes sense. So on the other side, what they found was that one of those three statements that Amber alleged were defamatory, the statements made by Adam Waldman on behalf of Johnny Depp, still have all kinds of questions about whether that can properly be attributed to Johnny Depp. But like I said, I kind of already referred to the litigation privilege. We don't have to go too deep into it, but this is what the jury ultimately decided: was one of those three statements they found to be defamatory. Now, a lot of people want to, I've seen some of the media response to this say, okay, well, this is a muddled verdict because the jury also found that the hoax claim statement was defamatory. Basically, to say that she had committed a hoax was defamatory. That's not exactly true, though. It's not accurate. And well, I'll get to that in just a second. But first, let's talk about the damages aspect of what she got from the verdict. So for the one of the three statements that they found to be defamatory, what the jury awarded her was $2 million in compensatory damages. Now, of course, she asked for $100 million, didn't prove it. She proved about 2 million. So this is, to me, that number is proper if they actually did find defamation in this. This number seems like it's reasonable if you follow that conclusion. And in punitive damages, $0. They did not want to punish Johnny Depp in any way for the statements. So $2 million. Basically, what that means is you can balance that out. At the end of the day, she owes him $8,350,000. So what exactly does all of this mean? So a lot of people are confused about the fact that this is like a so-called muddled verdict, right? Because both of them win when people were expecting one of them to win or the other one to win. But we said throughout this trial, those of us on the panel, we said throughout that there was a good possibility that both sides technically could win. And when we said, what does that look like? This is what we said. We hypothesized that we could say, okay, so the jury finds that Amber Heard lied about how she characterized Johnny Depp as a domestic abuser, either because they believed that he didn't abuse her at all, or because they thought that her claims went too far from what actually happened and were enough of a misrepresentation that they could be considered a lie that was harmful to Johnny Depp's reputation, right? So, and two of these things that were a little bit of wild cards were the definition of abuse and the definition of a lie, because those two things were not exactly defined here. In a normal DV case, abuse would be very much defined according to statute. But because this wasn't exactly a DV case, it's a defamation case, a lot of that comes down to the interpretation of the jury. What exactly does it mean when Amber says Johnny abused me? What exactly does it mean when Johnny says she lied about that? So, and the specific things that she says within those statements, right? Because the jury was looking at each individual statement to parse through them to say, is she lying, or is she being pretty much truthful here? So, so what we said was that it could be that the jury found at the same time that Amber Heard lied about how she characterized Johnny Depp as a domestic abuser. And at the same time, Adam Waldman / Johnny Depp lied about his characterization of the hoax incident on May 21st, 2016. So in that respect, basically what I mean by that is that maybe she lied about Johnny Depp being a domestic abuser, but maybe she didn't go so far as to create a hoax around it. Or maybe she did lie about the hoax, but maybe some of those details were something that the jury disagreed with. And this is basically, maybe I'm getting to my conclusion a little bit too quickly here, but basically, as a reminder, Johnny Depp won on all the statements that he alleged were defamatory. And on top of that, he was awarded punitive damages, a lot of them. So to say that this is like a muddled verdict, I don't think so. I really don't think that this is a muddled verdict at all. I think that this really is more than anything a very successful verdict for Johnny Depp. Um, and and because of that, like this is a huge signal of support for his case, and I think it makes it clear. It makes it a clear showing that the jury believed that Amber Heard lied in her characterization of Johnny Depp as a domestic abuser in the op-ed. Now, on Amber Heard's side, the two statements that were found to not be defamatory are very interesting to look at, right? Because those are the two generalized hoax statements. The one that was defamatory was the one that was going into detail about Amber and her friends being in on it, and the details about the ordering of the event, saying that they called the cops, decided that wasn't enough, so they roughed the place up. They they roughed the place up, and then they called the cops again, and then they did this and that, all this kind of stuff. So it could very well be that the jury looked at all of those details and said, either I don't think that the friends were involved. Or I think that the ordering of like the specifics involved in that incident are not, are not the way that things actually ended up happening. So that could be the case. But one thing that is for sure is that they said that those two statements that were generalized hoax statements, they did not disagree with the idea that the hoax statements, the generalized idea that she had committed a hoax, were not defamatory. There's a lot of negatives in there. Basically, what I'm saying is Adam Waldman said Amber Heard committed a hoax about the DV claims. Those general statements, the jury looked at and said, that's not defamatory, either because it's not a lie or because there's no actual malice. There could be a number of ways that they got there. But basically, you can't say that the jury found that the statement that she had committed a hoax was defamatory, because that's not what they found. So let me just take a look here. I have a bunch of notes for this one. So yeah, we have some theories here about how they arrived at this conclusion. It could be that there was some kind of a holdover on the jury that decided, I still don't feel like Amber Heard is a complete loser in here and I feel bad for her or something. That's always a possibility on juries, right? Because these are human beings. Like people want to feel okay with the verdict one way or another. So there could have been some aspect of this that was splitting the baby, so to speak, where they basically said, okay, we're going to give the overall win to Johnny, but we're going to throw her a bone over here because, like, I don't know, for whatever reason, to say, these specific statements, we don't necessarily like that this lawyer went and talked to the media about these specifics and dragged in these friends that are no longer friends with Amber, supposedly, according to their deposition testimony and all this other stuff. There could have been an element there where they felt bad for the friends even. That could be an element here. Whether or not that's proper, a lawyer is going to disagree with that most likely. But that could be, and that would be a fine reasoning for the jury to come to, right? Like that's not something that really realistically would be overturned on appeal, at least not on the basis of that reasoning. So it could also be that they just felt like Adam Waldman was shady. It could have something to do with his assertions of the attorney-client privilege during his deposition. If that's the case, that is problematic because this was something that we were talking about quite a bit on this channel during the trial, saying, there was something about showing that entire deposition testimony or deposition video for Adam Waldman, where he's asserting the attorney-client privilege over and over and over again, that it can start to look like he's hiding something when he's not. And it's perfectly reasonable and perfectly allowable and legal and proper for him to assert the attorney-client privilege, which actually he doesn't even have the ability to waive in the first place, because the attorney-client privilege is owned by the client. So only the client can waive it. The attorney cannot. Or another possibility is that the jury just may have been straight up unconvinced of some things having to do with those details within that particular hoax statement. So that's the verdict, basically. I hope you guys are I hope that enlightened some things for some folks. But basically, it's not a crazy verdict, in my opinion. And I think that those of us who were on the panel, who were watching the whole time, that were commenting on it, we ultimately reached the conclusion that Johnny was probably going to win. That was the proper result for this, right? But of course, there's been some media response to this as well. And I will say, so I have invited some of my friends for portions of this live stream. I said about 30 minutes into it. And now that I'm talking about some of the media response, I'm going to talk about a couple more first. I see Kurt is in the background. He's waiting to come on. I'm going to make him wait for just a little bit longer though, because I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the media response here. And I know that there are some folks here that are here. They want to hear about some specific some specific conversations that have been happening online, certain Twitter nados, as I would put it. So let me get a few super chats, and then we'll talk about the media response. Pretty Nikki, thanks so much for your super chat. Says, I think they can't prove the friends and attorneys helped in the hoax is all. That could be. And they may have also felt bad for the friends too, with seeing their deposition videos as well. Secret Mixed World says Camilla has been made partner. I did not know that. I wasn't tracking that, but good for her. That's awesome. Alicia Bear says Camille Vasquez has been. Okay, so yeah, folks are saying that. That's awesome. Moving Forward says CV apparently got an offer from Hollywood. I was seeing some reports on that. I wasn't able to dig into it, but I did see some headlines about that Hollywood was asking for her. Valhalla says, what does AH need to show on appeal for improper juror influence or misconduct? Actual influence on verdict, appearance of influence. Hey, pup. Indy wants to give her opinion. Well, so yeah, first off, you have to show that the jury was actually influenced. There have been many cases that have been, out there in the media where people have even made statements to the public that could be very influential to the jury. But the question is, did the jury even see it? Because if they didn't see it, it's like that tree falling in the woods, y'all. If a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to hear it, did it really make a sound? I said this throughout trial as a metaphor for the jury paying attention, right? If you get the best testimony out of a witness, but the jury's not paying attention, did it really enter into evidence? It's not going to make a difference, right? So same thing happens with jury misconduct. If there's all kinds of activity going on around the courthouse, around the internet, around the world, talking about this case, but the jury wasn't paying attention to it, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, and then on top of that, or even if they did hear something and it didn't influence them one way or another, no result. So you've got to, that's basically that. Cherry Ho says, greetings from Hong Kong. Hey, I love Hong Kong. It's a great city. Love your channel. Thank you so much. Question, not sure how legal works, but can AH send out evidence they claim banned in court by JD to the public now? Well, a lot of it actually has been leaked to the public. It depends. Because there's some evidence that probably was exchanged across the ledger to the other side that is probably going to be under some kind of a protective order, right? So when we're talking about medical documents, I don't think there have been any financial documents that have been exchanged, at least not that I'm aware of. But if there's that kind of stuff that's sensitive, that's probably not going to be released to the public. But some stuff might be, right? I mean, there's other stuff that we know of that people have talked about on other channels, on the, Jackson, Real Laura B on their Movie Myths and Monsters podcast. They've gone through all kinds of evidence on there too, that is available to the public that folks know about that didn't actually make it into the trial. So there is stuff that's publicly available, but to say all of it, I doubt it, just because there's probably some stuff that's sensitive. Kathy Richardson says, Brown Rudnick announced Camille Vasquez has been named partner. Awesome. Good for them and good for her. And then Just Girls D3000, your interview on Breaking Points is great. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Wrath G says, question, do you think we are close to see a lawsuit against a law tuber for defamation? Against a law tuber? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that anyone in LawTube, at least not that I've seen, has said anything defamatory or that I think could possibly be defamatory. Not sure, but maybe buy some law tubers. I don't know. Folks have asked if I'm going to be suing anyone for defamation. At this point, I have no plans. So I will say that right now. Not to say that never say never. I am an attorney, but you know. My IDEA says, why find number 2 Waldman's statement malicious though? Defamation okay, but not likely he described it knowing it was all a lie. I do agree. For me, because of the fact that Amber's statements that she alleged come from Amber being a public figure, right? So in order to show defamation, she also had to show actual malice, meaning that she had to prove to the jury that Adam Waldman not only knew that what he was saying was false, but that, or either he knew what he was saying was false, but that, or that he was being reckless as to the truth or falsity of it, right? And so him being even if you say, okay, he's an agent of Johnny Depp here, right? He's his attorney, he's an agent of Johnny Depp, and he's acting on his behalf. You have to show that he himself has actual malice in making the statements. And personally, I don't think that they get there because there was nothing that was revealed about the relationship or the communications between him and Johnny Depp. So how could you know whether he did or did not have good reason to believe what he was saying? You know what I mean? Yeah. But at the end of the day, jury found that it'll be so interesting to see if any of the jurors actually do come out and talk to the media at some point. Because I know that there was a TikTok that came out. Looks like that may have not actually been real. So I'm very curious. And actually, on that note, if there is a juror who ends up wanting to talk to someone, they want to talk to someone who's going to have a fair conversation with them, I would love to talk to a juror. I would love to on this channel, anytime, anywhere. Let me know. Reach out to me in any format. Laura says, I don't understand how anyone can't hear the audio and come to the conclusion that she is the abuser. I found it strange that her lawyer didn't attempt to address the audio. I think it's because they would rather not have the jury think about the audio, because if they can frame the case as favorably to their client as possible, that's going to be the better way to do it, at least for their purposes. Because if you're spending all of your time trying to address the bad facts as opposed to just establishing the good facts for your case, that can also be kind of a losing strategy, because you're still drawing a lot of attention to that audio and you just want to bury that as much as possible, make people forget about it as much as possible with other stuff too. And then we'll get a couple more, and then we'll turn to the media stuff. I know that this is Giannis because of previous conversations in the chat, but I'm so sorry I can't read your last name because I don't know Greek characters. I need to ask Mr. Bytes. He's much better about this kind of stuff. Good to have you back, Alita. Thoughts on Elaine's repetitive tale of two trial script from her interviews personally felt kind of insulting. Yes, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about her talking points. She has the same sort of like repetition of talking points that she has in her various interviews. The tale of two trials is a very interesting way of putting that, because it's like, it's very like tale of two cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Yes, yeah. It don't feel too insulted, because she is representing her own client here and she's trying to spin the public narrative as much as she possibly can. I don't think she's doing a particularly good job. That's just me. But yeah. And then we'll get one more here. Can Johnny Depp appeal the UK trial now? Possibly. Black Belt Barrister has started a change.org petition that he's hoping that if enough people sign the petition, it could cause enough attention in the UK to draw back onto that case to see if there's something that could be done to have that reopened again and reinvestigated one more time. And I guess just one more. Shayna says, do you think AH has any grounds for appeal? I think the verdict was a bit of horse trading. Could those statements have been covered by Waldman just saying, I think, before he made those statements? Not necessarily. I mean, because you can say, it's my opinion that, or I think this, and you can still be held to have defamed someone with that kind of a statement. So looking at circumstantial evidence, other kinds of stuff, you can definitely find that. So, it could have been, the verdict could have been a bit of horse trading, splitting the baby, basically, like I said before. So anyhow, and then Michelle Maynard, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I've got some friends here in the backstage, but first I'm going to talk, you know what? Nah, I'll bring them on now. I'll bring them on now. Why not? Why not? Life is more fun with friends. I don't want to make you guys sit for too long.
I'm happy. I'm chilling. I'm chilling in the background. I'm fine.
How's it going, guys?
Great.
It's going fine. I thought, I wasn't on stream enough today. And then I heard that there was a stream over here, and I heard the word media, and I thought, that sounds like fun.
Yes. Yes. So if anyone is not familiar, of course, this is Kurt from Uncivil Law, and this is Rick from Hogue Law.
That's me, Rick from Hogue Law.
And if you guys are somehow unfamiliar with them, be sure to check out their channels. I will be, if I haven't already, and by I mean my editor. If I haven't already, their links will be just in the description below. Their links will be in the description below, and you can go and check them out and take a look at their channels, subscribe to their channels, watch their stuff, like their videos, share their stuff, all the great YouTube-y stuff, as we like to say, right? Andy the Game Maker says, show Rick the artwork. I'm not sure which artwork you're talking about, but I'm sure
I don't know.
It might be one meme of like I think he may be referring to a cartoon of you and Johnny Depp on, I think, a dolphin or something.
Okay.
With that says like and subscribe or something like that.
That does sound like me. That checks out.
It does. It does. It really does.
I thought we were talking about your new profile picture on Twitter, which is rad. I have to say, which I'm allowed to say because I'm a radicalized influencer, as you know. So I can say that the profile image is rad. If you haven't checked it out on Twitter, Alita has a wonderful picture done with her and Holmes and Indy sitting in front of a window. I actually honestly thought it was straight from one of your sponsors to begin with. It's really high quality.
Thank you. Yeah, I had it commissioned by the same artist who did the LawTube grid with all of us in little squares and whatnot. I reached out to her and was like, hey, can you do one of me and the zoo with Amber. Whoa, weird. No, not Amber.
Did you name
Astra.
one of your pets Amber? And what is the genesis of this?
That would be good. No.
Astra for Star, because Mr. Bytes is obsessed with space. So Astra, Holmes, and Indy. So anyhow, well, let's get to, speaking of Twitter, let's talk about some Twitter takes, shall we?
Dangerous. All right, let's do it.
Dangerous, of course. So some of these media takes have been, and now Andy texted me, you ruined it. Sorry. Sorry, I'm not sorry. But
I like that you're taking text from your brother while you live stream to thousands of people.
It pops up on the screen.
It's very amusing.
So actually, before I actually pull up those texts, one of the benefits of taking a little bit of a break from content creation for a few days has been the fact that I've been able to just sort of sit back and watch and just sort of observe and kind of take in my own impressions, right? And hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good morning. It's nice to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you too. We're about to jump into some of these media takes, right? We're going to start with Twitter. It's going to be fun.
It's like a family reunion up in here.
My favorite one is the WAPO dust up, which I saw on Rick's channel. He did a fantastic job. But carry on.
We're gonna get into that one too, because I figured it's only fair if I'm in the middle of the eye of the storm, right?
Yeah,
I should probably talk about it.
You just luck out though every time though, man. They mess up something about you, you wind up on all the media, you get huge exposure. It's great for the channel, man.
Beautiful.
Damn, you couldn't plan this stuff.
It doesn't always happen that way, so I am very, very fortunate. So
I wouldn't describe this as lucked out, but we can dig in.
Now,
even still, all things considered.
I'm just saying, if Lorenz
could have
wants to
ended
say
up
that she
worse.
reached out to me for comment, I wouldn't mind the press.
So anyhow,
Well, it's good. It's verifiably false, and it's sort of like a mundane issue. So
Yeah,
you
there
can
you
just
go.
say, no, that didn't happen. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
it's not political at all. It's really just kind of a let's just hope that people tell the truth kind of thing,
Right, exactly.
I agree
So-
completely.
So anyhow, so one of the things that I noticed was that I don't know, you guys can let me know if you have any pushback on this impression, but my impression from just sort of sitting back and observing everything has been,
You gotta turn up Mike's mic.
okay, Mr. Byte says I need to turn up Mike's mic.
Thanks,
I will turn
producer.
it up.
You can
Thank
set us
you.
to auto leveling now that we don't have to compete with court audio, you know?
Yeah, it's so true. So okay, so I've got everybody turned up now. So hopefully everybody's balanced. Guys, let me know if everything's good on volume. So one of the things that I noticed was I kind of thought back to what we were telling the viewers about the jury and what they were going to be evaluating, the things that they tend to find more reliable, more credible, less reliable, less credible. And one of the things that I remember that we talked about was that the jury is generally speaking going to trust themselves, trust their own analysis above the analysis of anyone else, right? Any expert witnesses, trusting any kind of statements by the attorneys in the case saying, this is just ignore all of the other witnesses, Amber saying all of the other witnesses are lying, right? All of Johnny's witnesses, just write them all off because they're all on his payroll, right? Meanwhile, the jury is able to say, okay, they may be on the payroll. That's one element of bias, but I was watching the way that they were responding to cross-examination. I was watching the way that they were responding to direct examination and the way that they were talking about things. There may have been some inconsistencies, but overall things lined up. Things lined up also with the police officers who are not on the payroll, are not financially biased in various ways, or really biased in any way, according to what we could see. So the jury is always able to evaluate what's in front of them, and they will, generally speaking, put more emphasis on what they are able to analyze themselves as opposed to what they are going to just accept from someone else, like Amber saying, just ignore all those other witnesses, and Elaine Bredehoft or Ben Rottenborn saying, ignore all of those other witnesses. They're all lying, everyone except for Amber. And oh, by the way, ignore all of the prior recordings. So ignore old Amber, or young Amber, I should say, like the earlier Amber. Ignore her too, because all you need to listen to is the Amber that's right here in front of you. So the jury basically is going to evaluate it like that. And when we saw the closing argument, I remember I was saying, I really hope that Johnny Depp's side says exactly that, saying that essentially they're trying to gaslight you. They're trying to tell you, don't believe your own eyes and ears. Don't believe these other witnesses. Don't believe, what you have seen for yourself in the evidence and the testimony and everything. So, and whether or not that was going to be convincing or not, it's obviously up to the jury. Looking at the media response then, as I took a step back, it felt very much like the general public, or I guess at the very least, the public that has been watching this trial. They are almost like a secondary jury on the overall trial, right? Because they have been watching and evaluating everything that has been coming forward, and they've been able to decide for themselves how this trial should end up, how the verdict should end up. And so they came to their own conclusions. And then you go and you see these headlines, or these tweets from so many of these people responding to it saying, this is a travesty. This is a horrible verdict. This is, the death of Me Too. And now no one, this is like the end for domestic violence survivors. They have turned back the clock in so many ways. That you have these people who, by the way, are not like politically divided in any way. Like the viewers on this channel right now span a pretty wide political spectrum. And that's something that I actually really like about the viewers right now. I like the fact that it's not any sort of like political monolith, but it seems like people are trying to turn it into the media, generally speaking, a lot of these headlines, not all of them, right? And I should clarify, not all headlines have been getting it wrong. But there's been a lot of headlines that have been trying to turn this into a political statement where folks are supposed to ignore what they saw in the trial and just kind of dance along to the, to the Pied Piper's tune. What do you guys think? Am I wrong in that? Does it feel like this is like the trial was almost like a microcosm of what's happening outside of the trial now, in terms of like the jury and trying to convince them to not pay attention to what they're seeing?
Well, I think it's self-evident that a number of the articles writers didn't really watch a lot of the trial or evaluate the credibility of the witnesses on their own, right? And I think the UK trial, I think, set people in a specific kind of mindset, at least in the journalistic class, in certain important respects, especially in Great Britain and the UK, where we're seeing a lot of some of the most vitriolic headlines coming out of. So I think you're right to say that they have their own agenda in some important ways. But I would also, devil's advocate as I do here, it's been a while, so I figure I have to say it.
Yeah.
Say that the public jury was also taking on a lot of extra information that I don't know was warranted, right? We talked about the Australia tape. We talked about the Jennifer Howell letters. We talked about a bunch of stuff that didn't actually make its way into the crucible of truth, the judicial process. And so I think there's good arguments on both sides that certain folks got a little bit mob mentality-ish on the outside with some of the information that came out that was never introduced to the real jury. So, you know, I'm going to lawyer this answer and say I think you're like 90% right, but there are these edge cases that were kind of in it on the other direction. Right. If we want to complain about the orgy misogyny article in The Guardian, and believe me, I complain about it, I think there is the equivalent of that on the other side, that no matter how this turned out or what was presented or anything else would have gone the opposite direction, period. So, I mean, I think it's a complicated thing, but certainly the media is not covering itself in glory right now, when I had expected them to at least reflect, if not fully reverse course, when a unanimous group of 7 people in Virginia decided on something, because as we know, it's hard for 7 people to agree on anything. And you've got this level of evidence, you've got this level of maybe not vitriol, but at least confusion and things that are happening that aren't easily understood. And 7 people agreed to it. That's worth referencing, and not just saying, well, the jurors are clearly misogynists. That's not terribly helpful input.
Right. And to say that they are joining in on mocking. I mean, I know you've covered a lot of these articles on your channel, Rick, with your hangouts and headlines. Which, guys, if you want to wake up in a really great mood, well, some of these articles will not put you in a great mood, but Rick will.
Kurt would disagree. Kurt would disagree on whether hangouts and headlines put you in a great mood.
It's a great way to wake up, with a cup of coffee and Rick talking about how these articles are maybe not hitting the mark.
Check with your doctor if hangouts and headlines is right for you.
We've got some. Yeah. You know, be careful about your blood pressure some days.
Yeah, exactly. So, so one of these, so this, and the first one that I want to talk about here is it's not an article. It's not even a journalist really, but it's a public response by someone who has a blue check mark. So we're going to talk about it. This is Michelle Dauber, who is, I believe, a professor at Stanford. And I'm not going to go too hard on this, right? Because I'm just going to make some points.
Are you not? I'll go hard on this. This one really pissed me off.
Oh, this one pissed you off?
You should have on your next tab, Camille being made partner 30 minutes ago.
Yeah. So I'll read this out for folks. You know, I'll zoom into.
Oh, it's already pissed me off. I see. Oh, okay.
So
I don't go hard on much, honestly. I try to see both sides of this. This one made me angry.
It's just because I almost like, it's so illogical that I almost feel bad that I'm like, no. I can't exactly get terribly outraged, because I'm just like, you just don't understand. You clearly don't understand the legal profession. Or anyway, before we get into commentary, let's read the tweets.
It's not that much to understand, though. It's not like you need some sort of uber sophisticated legal knowledge to understand base principle. This is just purposefully, ignorantly stupid.
Yes. Yeah, it is. So Michelle Dauber says, in a society that strips women of real power, some women have learned to seek male approval in the hopes they won't be or abused or humiliated. I don't want to read it. I don't want to get demonetized. It probably will anyway, but whatever. Sucking up to power might feel good to you, but it won't work. You will be next. Of all the women who suck up to male power, women lawyers are the absolute worst of the bunch. Sorry, this is turning into a dramatic reading. I can't help it. Sometimes I start off trying to do like a straight reading, and then I just can't help it because it's so dramatic.
No,
One
this needs to
thing
be
that's worth
mocked.
mentioning is who
It
Michelle
does.
Dauber is, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
No, I mean, she's at Stanford, right? I mean, like this is a person that does have power over other individuals as you read through this.
And
what is she at Stanford?
responsible for. She's a professor.
Of
She's
what?
responsible
Law?
for teaching other people. I don't know. Is she a law?
Can you
professor?
highlight the
Let's see here.
profile? Just if you just put your
I'm just
mouse
here.
over the profile.
Professor Stanford, chair
of
something.
recall Persky, hobbies, backpacking, skiing, ranting. Tweets are mine alone.
Yeah, so she's a professor. She teaches people.
She teaches people, teaches young adults who are trying to figure out, how they're going to see the world. Folks are saying that she's actually a law professor. If that's the case, that boggles my mind.
I think she might be. I'll look it up.
She's a law professor?
The mind. Okay. So she ostensibly has around half of her students are females. So she's talking about her
school.
Fuck me. Sorry, is it too early for that time of day?
Not yet. We're not quite getting there yet, but we may get there soon. So she says, of all the women who suck up to male power, women lawyers are the absolute worst of the bunch. Desperate to prove they are real lawyers and understanding that being a woman undermines their identity as lawyers, they can throw women under the bus as hard and fast as they can. So then she's got a bunch of, she calls these women skirts, like skirts for these men, right? So Bill Cosby's skirt, Brock Turner's Judge Aaron
1940s noir language. All right,
I guess kind of like a female version of a beard.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah.
All right.
Harvey Weinstein's skirt. Cuomo's skirt, and then she kind of goes down. And to be fair, I'm not defending any of the individuals that are involved in here. I don't know about these first two cases. Oh well, Bill Cosby. I mean, Bill Cosby we know about. Like yes, objectively, it's been shown he did some terrible things. Harvey Weinstein, great example of someone who did something terrible.
Is she the skirt who pointed out that Bill Cosby's rights have been violated? Is that the very, very bad thing she did as a lawyer? Is that her?
That's it too. Hey Natalie, how's it going?
Hey, did you hear?
That's literally the reason I came to join this stream. As I was modding and doing some other work.
You're not a real lawyer.
You're
not a real lawyer, Natalie. You're only sucking up to the male power structure and you're throwing women under the bus. You should feel ashamed, apparently.
I mean, I'm ashamed of myself for lots of shit, but is it too early in the morning for shit? This is
I already went deeper than that. So yeah.
He already dropped the F-bomb.
So incredibly infuriating.
It absolutely, but there's something. It's like maybe it's so outrageous to me that I can't even be outraged about it because it just shows. Like the thing that is outrageous about it is the fact that this is apparently a law professor. Like this is someone who teaches law students, male and female. This idea, okay, like let's go like point by point. Of all the women who suck up to male power, women lawyers are the absolute worst of the bunch. Desperate to prove they are real lawyers. What? Huh? Like I'm not desperate to prove I'm a real. Okay, let's talk about how you prove that you are a real lawyer. Go to law school, pass the bar exam, take on clients, maybe win a few cases, or settle some good cases. Like, or I mean, that's litigation. Like, successfully negotiate some good transactions. You know what I mean?
Like, do whatever it is you do, Rick.
Try not to get any bar complaints. Like that's how you prove you're a real damn lawyer.
You gotta talk to Nick Ricada about that last one there, man.
Honestly, I would, if she's a law professor, I'm even wondering how much lawyering she honestly did. And I have nothing against law professors. And honestly, I think some of the best people who I dealt with in law school were adjuncts, people who dealt with practicing and teaching. But I think that's also an institutionalized problem with law school in general, is that there is the difference between an adjunct professor and there's sort of the institutional white tower. And this is just so out of touch with reality that, I mean, it's incredible.
It absolutely
looks
is.
like she's pure academic, as best I can tell from her CV here. She goes to Northwestern in the 90s and then goes into a bunch of fellowships. And it's worse. She's a program director for a sociology in the law program
I also see she has program affiliations, and this is a quote: feminist, gender, and sexuality studies.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense for what she's tweeting about, right? So,
yeah.
There you go.
Stanford University should be absolutely ashamed. Anybody who's considering paying tuition to this institution should reconsider when they have people like this. I get it; it's throughout society, but that's embarrassing. That is just embarrassing.
And to clarify, for anyone that isn't familiar with the various law school rankings in the United States, there is a certain tiered ranking.
Isn't Stanford like 3?
Number 3. It is considered like the Yale or the Harvard of the West.
Yeah.
So
in fairness, that lines up for me. I think it's a very highly ranked institution. And I think if you're looking at something like this and you are a woman and you're thinking about which law school to attend, you would think twice, in my opinion. Putting the picture of Camille up there with not being real lawyers, intimating that she's just seeking power by covering these things. It also, just outside of the gendered issue, it does what I really hate from anybody talking about these things is that, as an officer of the court, as a lawyer in general, we believe in the right to zealous advocacy and defense of everyone. So Johnny Depp, who is the plaintiff here, but he's entitled to an advocate in the court system, just like anybody else is. And yes, you can choose your clients, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the right to choose who you want to zealously advocate for. So to me, it's obviously wrong. I think, Alita, you had the best take on it. It's like, this doesn't make me so mad because it's so crazy.
Yeah, it's so illogical that it's just stupid. I'm just curious how this person is actually a law professor. I mean, and then this next statement, understanding that being a woman undermines their identity as lawyers. Who has that understanding? Like, to me, like I don't have that understanding. I don't have any understanding that me being a woman undermines my identity as a lawyer.
In what possible senses does being a woman undermine your identity as being a lawyer? Just out of raw curiosity, because
like, is it because
if I said something even approaching this, they call me misogynist for days. What the hell?
Yeah,
it's right. It's ridiculous. And this statement in particular is the kind of thing that makes me wonder. Sometimes you see certain takes that are intended to be made on like a broad level about like, this is like women in society or like race in society. And it seems like it doesn't make sense when you start to look at how it would apply in individual cases, to the extent that you're like, maybe this is more of a, like, maybe this just says more about your own psychology than anyone else's. Like, I don't think anyone thinks this. But like this, Michelle Dauber says, that being a woman undermines
she can't
your
pass the
identity as a
Dauber
lawyer.
standard. Am I right?
Of course
I
not.
want to know what she say about Elaine then. This just seems to be specifically calling out and vilifying Camille.
Yes. Well, Elaine was on the opposite side, right? So her client is a woman. So
that makes her a real lawyer.
Yes, Michelle's real problem here is that a woman attorney deigned to bring Johnny Depp's case.
Nate, we're hearing it now for the first time from a law professor at Stanford. Women are not real lawyers. This is interesting information.
They're coming out. They even called me out for the video response I did yesterday. So they're coming out. They're coming after us, baby.
Uh-huh.
We're all misogynists, anti-women. Even you guys. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Legalbytes and
Natalie and I have internalized misogyny, obviously.
You're misogynist with the rest of us.
Natalie,
part of the reason that this pisses me off so much is because of how much like I actually do fight, and that's the thing. Is part of it is just it's so out of touch, and it's almost past the point of words.
It's funny. One person yesterday was challenging me like, "Oh, Nate, I'm like I feel like I'm the only person in this chat. I'm not in this chat, but we were talking on Discord. I'm like, I'm the only person in this room who literally had a domestic violence victim defamation case that I settled with a major institution. I'm like, I'm the only person that has done that, and you guys have the nerve to tell me I know nothing about domestic violence victims, right? It's like, it's insane because I just don't know why this is the hill that they want to die on. It's like BLM with Jussie Smollett. They didn't die on that hill. They were like, we believe Jesse, but that was it. You never heard anything. Here, they are literally fighting tooth and nail to keep this Amber Heard a victim narrative. I don't know why. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Nothing makes any sense. The world is stupid.
The world.
I think the court case was too long for them, honestly. I think that there's a certain amount of maybe not laziness, but at least time constraints. And they had the UK verdict. They knew which way this was supposed to go. And so they know the verdict is wrongheaded. And that's all it takes sometimes.
So true. Well, speaking of, you guys want to hear about some more desperation?
Camille made partner. I'm assuming you guys talked about that, right?
We did. We mentioned
Camille did make partner. Yeah, she did. So that was good for her. Well, here's some more desperation right here. This bit right here.
Oh, don't do this to me. She's going to block me now. I'm the only law tuber she hasn't blocked. I thought that was like my badge of honor here.
I don't know if she blocked me or not.
She hasn't blocked me yet. But maybe
she hasn't blocked me, Nate.
Oh, because everybody was like, she's... All right. Because everybody was like putting up their blocks as like badges of honor. She's blocked me too. I was like,
no! So far, I have yet to be blocked by Eve Barlow and Taylor Lorenz, but who knows when that will change. So
5 seconds ago.
Like as I say that, of course. So here's this one by Miss Eve Barlow. This is again, I see this as more desperation. Because they are looking for literally everything that they can to try to talk about how this trial ended up, being a miscarriage of justice, of course. So we've got a tweet by Eve Barlow where she retweets this other one about Judy, the court reporter. Judy, the court reporter, man, I feel so bad for her because you know what? As to begin with, the job of a court reporter or a stenographer is to sit as she did here, like this, right by the witness. The witness is, up there in that little corner up there. The entire time, the entire 6 weeks, she is sitting there from the beginning to the end, and during all of the arguments by the parties, during all the sidebars and everything. We got a break during those objections, right? Like we could kind of talk about some stuff. We could explain a few things to the viewers, but she had to sit there and continue paying attention and basically be like, she had to be the courtroom, her brain. She had to turn off her entire brain, be the courtroom, and just type the sounds that she is hearing. It's not even, if you see a court reporter's keyboard, it's not even a normal keyboard, right? Because it's some kind of sorcery. I don't exactly understand it, but it's some kind of phonetic sounds that they just kind of type up as they hear it. And every single time that I have talked to a court reporter about their job, they're like, honestly, I don't even know what's going on during the hearings that I'm working in, or the deposition that I'm taking down, or the trial, or whatever, because I don't independently hear anything because I'm so focused on just getting the sounds onto paper. So here they are criticizing Judy, the court reporter, who has been sitting there in one of the most important jobs, but also one of the most unglorified jobs in the courtroom, and trying to denigrate her, to try to say we can't even trust this record that has been taken because she probably had all this bias that she has. That she has, decided that she's gonna try to lie about this transcript as she's typing it up somehow, in the moment. I don't know how you could possibly do. She would have to be some super genius evil person to do that, because that takes a lot of brain power to try to do, especially in the moment. And so this person says,
capacity. That's straight up defamation itself.
It is.
That's true too.
Yeah.
And also for being simultaneously
the whole thing's
recorded.
videoed. So if you have some weird record, you can just compare it to the video.
Except for the
sidebars
when they approach the bench. Yeah, the sidebars and whatnot.
Oh yeah, that's where she really let loose her master plan, or the sidebars.
Of course.
Meanwhile, when you have a sidebar, there are people there. If you just start transcribing wacky stuff, people are gonna say, "I didn't say that. What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and Alita, I think you had it very right with the unglamorous part of it. I'm the court reporter that we had. I mean, for the most part, it's you. the court staff, things like that, like being appreciated. I mean, this isn't nothing specifically to do with Johnny Depp, I don't think. It's, somebody was like actually appreciated all the work that I did. I'm gonna, be happy about that. If Elaine had treated her well, things like that, I'm sure we would have similar photos of, them with her.
If Amber had gone up, people exactly. If Amber Heard had gone up to her on a daily basis and shook her hand and said, "Thank you so much for all of your work in this case," that would have been fine. It would.
Or if she'd done that with the security guards, or literally anyone, that'd been good.
I mean, it wouldn't have been like, oh my God, she's trying to influence the process. No, that's not how this works.
So, I was part of a very big, long trial with lots of security, and I feel like I'm still thanking those people. I still see them, and I'm like, and I think, especially with all the stuff that was going on with people being denied from the courtroom and things like that later on in the case, is like, I know from firsthand how many things are going on and how much actual additional stuff they have to be concerned about. And these people do really go above and beyond to take their job seriously in a situation like this. It's, I mean, you have to appreciate those people if you really want to be a decent person.
Yeah, exactly. So let me read these tweets here, in case, because I'm going to be putting this on the podcast version too. So if anybody wants to, is listening but can't see it. So the original tweet says, "Imagine going to trial, talking about the most shameful events of your life, and you see people in the courtroom who are supposed to be impartial, smiling and giggling with your abuser. It's shocking." And then it shows some photos of Johnny Depp, taking her hand or shaking her hand in a very chivalrous kind of way. And she's smiling big, and she, looks like she really appreciates it, right?
Smiling.
The horror,
the smiles.
So
I'm smiling.
So then Eve Barlow retweets it and says, "The court reporter, she's just done a TV interview." Again, the horror. "Gushing about getting to meet him outside of the courthouse during the trial." Also, she got to meet him outside of the courthouse because she had, what is this? Okay, so what happened here? She had left her bags inside the courtroom, and she's not courtroom staff, by the way. She is. Court reporters are independently hired, and they're hired by both parties. They typically will agree on the court reporter. So she had left her bags in there and got locked in. And so I guess there were some people from Johnny Depp's team that picked them up and had them for her. So she went to go and pick them up, and it was like an after party after, I think, closing arguments happened. And so she went, she picked up her stuff. She said hello. Johnny Depp gave her a big hug. There's nothing wrong with that. The jury didn't see anything because the jury wasn't there at the party. If the jury was at the party, that would be a problem.
The jury doesn't really exist at that point because the case is over.
But if the jurors saw that, that would be a problem because the jurors were at the party. That would be the problem, not Judy being at the party. That's not a problem.
I also bet Johnny Depp hugged everybody that was at the party.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So this is just, it's such a, so to me, I retweeted this and I said, this speaks to Eve Barlow's lack of understanding and just pure desperation to try to point to literally anything that she can to say that this was some kind of miscarriage of justice. So when you start pointing at the poor court reporter, who has done literally nothing wrong, and she works in a job that is largely thankless. By the way, guys, if anybody is listening, if you do ever happen to come across a court reporter during their work, if you are involved in a case in any way, whether you're a witness, a party, or anyone, do please thank the court reporter because, like I said, their job is incredibly important. It's so crucial, and yet it's often very thankless and it's unglamorous. And they deserve to be thanked for their work too. So, the fact that this is become like this issue that some people are trying to point to is just, to me, ridiculous. So, any other thoughts on this before we move on to the next thing to talk about?
Well, I can confirm in my practice, in a routine case that's worth, say, $10,000 that nobody's watching or cares about, you see this sort of civility all the time. This is very routine, that you're nice to the clerk or the court reporter or the bailiff or anybody like that. If the person sort of has that personality, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's no conspiracy here.
Exactly.
No, this is
exactly.
Be nice to all professionals you work with. You never know.
Yep.
So true. So true. Let me see here.
We could just be like kind and polite to people in general. That'd be cool.
good.
I mean, it could.
Politeness is usually a good thing. It's usually a good thing.
I'm just saying for those that need more utilitarian motivations, like you never know when that's going to be useful to you. So just be nice in general.
Same thing happens with wait staff, with admin staff, anywhere you go, doctor's office, a law firm, the restaurant, the hotel, anywhere you go, just be nice.
At the end of a case, I don't care how mundane it is. At the end of every case I've ever tried, the judge will say nice things to both attorneys. They'll say, you guys both did a really nice job advocating for your clients, whether it's true or not. It's just like a right that occurs every time. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just people being civilized.
Yeah. And Joy Daily Gaming says, didn't Eve get kicked out of court? Yes, she did. And I'm wondering, the one other thought that I'm having before we turn to the next subject is that I don't know, maybe she's mad that Judy wrote the transcript for the hearing where they talked about how Elaine said she's not a journalist and she's not Amber Heard's girlfriend or whatever. Maybe she's mad because she can't take it out on Elaine, but so she'd rather take it out on Judy, who just wrote the words that were spoken in the room. I don't know. I don't know.
It seems wild.
It is.
I do have to go, but before I go, I'll tell you what I tell everybody, all of my clients, because the only thing we can really control is how we treat ourselves and other people.
Exactly.
So, if you're going to control one thing, you should treat the court reporter well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Thanks so much for joining
I got to pop out. Everybody have a good day.
All right.
Thank you, Natalie.
So, okay, well, let's talk about the next one, which, for me is it's a little awkward and fun, but also awkward because it's kind of about me. So, I'm not going to go through the actual article because it is behind a paywall.
Look at that paywall.
I can read the article on Safari, but I can't share it on Safari because I have to share it on Chrome. But on Chrome, it requires me to have a payroll or to pay behind the paywall.
If you incognito that, you can do it.
I feel bad, but I pay for the Washington Post, so if you guys want to see it, I can pull it up.
Nate,
well, I will pull up the relevant portions of this story that came up because there is.
Wait, we just missed the expose. Nate pays for the Washington Post. We need to dig down on this.
I got them all. I got Washington Post, New York Times. How would I know what they're saying if I don't? So I'm
sure someone will tell you.
50 cents a month or whatever.
So there was this article that was written sometime ago, last week, basically, that was written by Taylor Lorenz, and let me pull up the tweet here, basically, because that we can basically get the story here from.
Do we need the tweet she sent to me explaining what the article was about?
We do not. We do not.
Because it was not truthful.
It was not. It definitely was not. It was very similar to what she had sent to me as well.
This whole topic of the media be clowning themselves over this case was like a bonus. Like we're all in on this. Like, hey, this is an interesting case. Let's cover it. And then the media just gives us this extra bonus of melting down before our eyes. It's really
been a wild couple weeks.
It really has been. So Taylor Lorenz at the Washington Post came out with this article talking about how the real winners of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial are the content creators and TikTokers and YouTubers and people who basically decided to pivot to cover the Johnny Depp trial. So I got maybe 10 minutes after it was published, I got a tweet. Somebody mentioned me and saying, hey, you've got an article from the Washington Post that's about you. It's not great, so check it out. I was like, okay. So I looked into it and I was like, all right, just, yet another article throwing shade at folks like LawTube and others who decided to cover the trial, trying to talk about how we're just trying to profit off of clickbaity, cheap entertainment when this is a very serious case. We've seen those articles kind of come up before, and we can
write them now.
Yeah,
right. We can write them now. Right. We know what the components are. They're always the same.
Of course. So I was just like, all right, that's not a huge deal, I guess, because, this is what people say about this kind of stuff, even though we know what we cover, we know how we cover it, we know that we do it with a lot of nuance and empathy. And, I feel like we've also bent over backwards to have a lot of empathy on Amber Heard's side as well. We really didn't need to show as much kindness, I could say, towards Elaine Bredehoft. Especially since she has gone on her press tour since the trial and gone way off the rails. And we'll talk about that too. We'll look at one of those videos as well, and basically analyze what she said. But I really do feel like we tried to be as fair as we possibly could to both sides throughout this trial. And we did so in a way that was educational at the same time, so that people could actually understand the damn trial.
Well, I'm gonna go all out and say, at the beginning of this trial, I thought Johnny Depp was not going to win a cent.
Yeah,
I thought he was a loser. I thought Amber Heard had the law on her side, the facts on her side. I thought Johnny Depp was a loser. He was not going to win, and I said so on this stream. I said, listen, I hope you guys aren't putting too much stock in this Johnny Depp trial, because it doesn't look like he's got much of a public figure in the U.S. with actual malice. It all rung bells to losers. So that's as fair as you can possibly be to the other side, right? We all went to this thinking that the other side was going to win. So this article doesn't, I think, understand that we transitioned not based on any misogyny, but based on essentially the evidence that was put in front of us. So
yeah. So and that's such a great point. Let's take a let me pull it up this way.
Blast from the past.
Let's take a round of hands. No. Let's take a round of hands, guys. I'll poll you guys. How many of you started from the beginning? At the beginning of this trial, you thought that Johnny Depp was going to lose? Raise your hands.
That's easy.
Yeah, right.
We're on tape saying that. All you have to do is show them opening day.
Yeah, just show the tape.
and that's not for your purposes. That's for the purposes of anybody that's new, that's coming into this conversation.
You're just trying to expose us.
Right?
I get it, Alita.
Of course.
I know you're radicalized.
I'm a radical. No, and the thing is, and the only reason why I had a difference of opinion was because I had spent the previous month basically researching this case. And so I had most of the information that came out at trial. So, there was still a bit that I was reacting to live as well. But yeah, I mean, that was the reason why I had a difference of opinion. And by the way, that was not to try to impress you male lawyers, me as a female lawyer, to respond to Michelle Dauber, right?
Yeah. I wasn't questioning your lawyer.
You're sucking up to us, the powerful, huh?
Yeah.
I know.
You're the misogynist in this thing. We are the Me Tooers.
I'm trying to prove myself as a female lawyer, because it's, of course, this is a what is it? What did she say it was? It was, me being a woman undermines my identity as a lawyer. It just all the lawyer neurons get crossed because I'm a woman. It's just a weird thing that happens because I've got a woman's brain. Doesn't that sound insane?
It's ridiculous, though.
I'm surprised at this point that she didn't mention in that thing something about it being that time of the month influencing the decision making. I mean, the way that article's written, holy.
Well, it's insane. So anyhow, but getting back to Taylor Lorenz's article. So this is the part where she refers to me, and I screenshotted it because I had a feeling as soon as I saw this, and I was like,
thank God you did.
Yeah, well, I knew because I knew that there was a possibility that this would change. So, and you could see that I'm retweeting a tweet, and it's, this tweet is you're unable to view it because the account owner has limited who can view their tweets. I haven't been blocked. I just double checked. I haven't been blocked, but it looks like she has. Yes.
Yeah, she's gone to ground.
And the thing is, she unprivated, I think, yesterday, and then reprivated. I don't know what's going on. But something is. Anyhow, but this is so.
I keep trying to invite her on the show, and she keeps going private. I think I'm scaring her.
I know. And I'm going to take you guys through the timeline of what happened, because I've gotten a lot of folks reaching out to me from the media asking me for what happened. And so I might as well tell you guys, and we're just going to take a journey down memory lane to see what happened. We'll do it through a series of tweets. I'm not going to show DMs because I feel very icky about showing DMs publicly.
Yeah.
But
it's Taylor Lorenz. We don't like her.
No.
That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Who you like, right?
Yeah, exactly. I have a personal aversion to it personally. So, anyhow, I would not be this confident if I wasn't 100% sure of myself. Okay. So I screenshotted this, thank goodness. And this is the paragraph where I appear in this article. And by the way, so just to remind you guys here that the article is all about how content creators are making a buck off of this, and how the subtext of it is basically that this is dangerous because they don't abide by the same sort of journalistic norms and ethics and standards that traditional media does. And so therefore there's this concern about, oh no, misinformation. Mind you, every time I get a fact wrong, the chat reminds me and they correct me, and then I correct myself. So
don't they ever?
They do. And I love it when they do, because I like being factually accurate. I hate getting things wrong. So I love it when people correct me so that I can move forward with correct information. So
also, they conveniently refuse to point out that most of us are attorneys and we have much, much more strict ethical standards than these clowns ever did. Well, and they know it. And it's not an omission by fault. That's very purposeful.
Well, let's get into that in just a sec, because let's talk about this paragraph where I show up. It says the content creator Alita Majeka earned $5,000 in 1 week by pivoting the content on her YouTube channel to nonstop trial coverage and analysis, according to Business Insider. That umbrella guy, an anonymous YouTuber whose entire channel is dedicated to pro-Depp content, earned up to $80,000 last month, according to an estimate by social analytics firm Social Blade. Majeka and that umbrella guy did not respond to requests for comment. Oryx said he earned over $5,400 last month in Instagram Reels bonus payments. And this is basically to highlight, to say, I think the point was that, you can't really survive on social media and make a buck on social media if you are pro Amber or if you're not pro Depp, which, number one, okay, on that point, I'll talk about that for just a second and then kind of dispel that and move on to some of the more important points. But number one, as we just discussed, everyone else on my panel who was coming into this that didn't know any of the information about this trial thought that Johnny Depp was going to lose. And so we went on this journey of basically using you guys almost as bellwethers for what the jury might be thinking as they're analyzing the evidence coming in front of them, and as their minds are being shifted and changed over time to come to a particular conclusion. And every single one of you over time independently came to the conclusion that Johnny Depp should win. So, but we the entire time tried to be as balanced and as fair the entire time and as accurate as possible. So, I would always talk about things that I thought were not good for Johnny Depp. I didn't think that every single one of his witnesses was good. Sean Betts, for example, I didn't think that he was a particularly good witness for Johnny. I think he's a great, person to have in his life because he seems like he's somebody who is very dedicated to Johnny, who's very passionate about protecting him. However, as a witness, I didn't find him to be the most compelling because of the fact that he felt to me like he was trying to oversell his testimony. And so to me, I felt that an objective jury was going to look at that and say, okay, I'm going to discount a little bit of what you're saying because you're trying to push something a little too hard here. People will read through that. So anyhow, that was just one example.
Well, we had it on the first day of testimony, right? Because the sister clearly is like, yeah. Johnny, did Johnny take drugs? I'm not sure.
She was trying to be protective.
I don't know.
She was.
I dumped all over Johnny on my channel after the first day of testimony because I was underwhelmed. I thought the second day went much better, but I did. That was my reaction. That was my honest reaction. That's what I put out.
It was exactly.
Honest.
I know for sure I found some of the witnesses to be good for Amber Heard because I remember saying so, and I remember the chat being somewhat displeased with some of those assessments.
Yeah,
that does happen. For benefit of the doubt, let's be clear, let's be fair and honest here. That did happen with respect to some of the things that Kurt said or that I said. If we found something that was credible in Amber Heard's testimony or elsewise, you did have some fairly vociferous reactions from chat on occasion.
My point was just that I was, first of all, that I noted it. Second of all, I was willing to say it, even though apparently it countered the narrative. I'm like, well, this is my opinion. I don't know what to tell you. This is what I'm seeing.
Right.
So like, I don't care that everyone else is seeing something different. It's like, well, this is what I see. And so, and then when I saw other things, my mind changed. Wow. As new information came in, I reassessed. Amazing concepts at work.
Exactly. So that's that point, that like this channel has not been, even though I, as the host, have been, have been very clear and very open about the fact that I was like, yeah, I think Johnny Depp should win. That was at the beginning of the trial, not because I, was just making a conclusion before knowing anything. It's because I had done research, and that was the conclusion that I had independently come to. But I still didn't want to try to push you guys towards any kind of a conclusion. I just said, just watch, just wait and watch, keep watching, keep evaluating the evidence. And I wanted to see where you guys landed. So anyhow, so there's that. Okay. Now turning back to this paragraph right here. And that umbrella guy Tug, he also has been raising hell about this whole thing too, because there have been aspects of this article that are also not correct. About him and certain statements about his involvement with Adam Waldman. So he's been raising hell over there on his Twitter profile as well. And also I think he's done at least a couple videos on this as well. So, but number one, it is very interesting that there was no indication in this entire paragraph or in the entire article that I am a licensed attorney, or that my channel is called Legalbytes, or that I cover law, or that I am a litigator, that I cover litigation, a lot of litigation, and not just litigation, but also trials and different kinds of legal issues that come up. So it's very interesting on the one hand, just to sort of gloss over some very important facts here, to talk about the fact that I'm just a content creator, which I am. But to me, when I think about what I do here, I am a lawyer first and a YouTuber second, always, 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 always. So the fact that she glossed over those details was interesting. Because
if I can say it worse, this first sentence talks about the fact that she got all her information from that Business Insider article that you did, right? And that Business Insider interview was top of week 2 of the trial, which is where that number comes from. But also it prominently calls you a legal YouTuber and talks about Legalbytes in that article. Yes. You have to deliberately take that article and decide to strip it in order to frame it in this particular way. And I chalk up a lot of this article. I chalk up a lot of the interactions I've had with various folks on this side of the conversation to a certain amount of laziness and just not attention to detail, stripping you of your legal resume in order to potentially make the case stronger. Because there's going to be a paragraph in this article that talks about K-pop people and makeup artists and band members and comedians and tire repair folks or whatever else list she comes up with to suggest that all these wackadoos on the internet are taking advantage of this trial. And then she includes only one lawyer, you, and stripped out that designation for reasons that are beyond my ken. You have to deliberately do that in a fashion that doesn't make any sense to me.
As you were making this point, I just looked at every channel name of people who are currently on this stream. Every one of us has the word law, or you have legality. You have some derivative of the word law in the title of your channel. This should suggest maybe this isn't our first time looking at a trial.
Look, you were already ready for this.
I absolutely was. So here's the Business Insider article that she refers to.
Looking good, Alita.
Thank you. So this is written by Jeff Weiss, who spent about a half an hour talking to me ahead of time. So that he said, hey, I'd love to talk about the growth of your channel and all this kind of stuff. And he actually has reached out to me again. I haven't responded. If he's watching, I apologize. I'm going to get back to you soon. But because the thing is, she kind of throws him under the bus too, because she says how did she put this? She said that I earned $5,000 in 1 week by pivoting the content on her YouTube channel to nonstop trial coverage and analysis, according to Business Insider. So basically she's saying pivot isn't my word. That's not my word. That I got it from this BI article. So let's take a look at the BI, and I apologize. This is on a PDF because that one is another one that's behind a paywall, and so I had access for a limited amount of time to the actual article itself, and so I saved it. But anyhow, so we're gonna read through the PDF saved version of it. So it'll look a little wonky at some points, but basically you'll get the gist of it. So the Insider article is by Jeff Weiss, who says YouTube channel Legalbytes has surged by live streaming the Depp v. Heard trial and earned $5,000 in a week. The first line says, Alita Majeka, the lawyer and commentator behind the YouTube channel Legalbytes, is having a moment. About a month ago, Majeka made a prescient call to live stream every day of the 6-week Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial, which is currently in its second week of testimony in Fairfax,
interesting.
Virginia.
About a month ago, you made the decision before the trial ever started. Interesting.
I honestly think it was more than
it's almost like the opposite of pivoting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the first time you referenced Johnny Depp to me, Alita, and I think it was more than a month before the trial.
Honestly, I think it was about a month before. So, and this was in week 2 at the time of publishing of this article. This was week 2. And so at the time, and so nowhere in there does this sound like a pivot to you?
No.
About a month ago, I made a call to live stream every day.
I seem to vaguely recall when you told me about it initially doing it, me suggesting it was a dumb idea.
Yeah.
So, and then you saying I was going to do it anyway. Well, which one of us was right in the end?
You're on the pulse.
It's like, holy God.
Yeah. So right there from the very beginning, this is talking about how, I made a decision to shift on it, but, calls me a lawyer, references Legalbytes, talks about, how, then later on in the article, talks about the LawTube community. I referred to, let me see if we can, the Depp v. Heard trial marks something of an anomaly, and that it not only involves high-profile figures airing the gory details of marriage gone where, but it's also this is covered here. But I referenced how this is not the first time that I have done a live stream of a trial. Previously it was on Nick Rekieta's channel here. So it's unfortunately this part of the article is not showing here, but we were seeing live streams during the testimony of Kyle Rittenhouse where concurrent viewership was over 100,000 viewers, Majeka recalled. It was absolutely unreal. I had to pull up photos of stadiums to see what 100,000 people looks like. Across the LawTube community, there's an unspoken agreement that whoever's hosting the streams keeps all revenues associated. Nevertheless, Majeka says there's a collaborative sensibility and something of an open door policy when it comes to guesting on others' channels. So it talks about how I'm practicing law. This is talking about how I am a lawyer who has decided to cover the Depp v. Heard trial and how things are going well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And yet we go back to this one here where, Taylor Lorenz takes that article and says that I am pivoting. So, in my opinion, that's not a pivot. It's not a pivot. I was covering it before the trial began, at least a month before the trial began, and B, I'm a lawyer who covers law. So, what about it?
Well, and to give some context here, the paragraph right before this is talking about like a 20-year-old content creator that changed their entire channel from making Instagram videos of whatever to covering Johnny Depp legal analysis, and then they hit you with Alita and Umbrella Guy. So it's not just the word pivot. If you think that's too strong that Alita's reacting to it, it's the whole setup to when you arrive at the word pivot, and that everything has been stripped away by the time you get here. It's a legitimate grievance for how this is framed out, because that's the thesis of this article. So it was not useful information, and that's what happened here, is that it was hidden from you because it otherwise harmed the hypothesis that Taylor Lorenz had put forth.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric Hunley, for the super chat too. He says Alita talked about doing the Depp trial on a legal panel on March 11th, 2022. That was on his channel because and shout out to Eric Hunley. Every other Friday, he likes to have a bunch of lawyers on his channel just hanging out, talking about the law and things that are going on from lawyers' perspectives. And
Friday on this channel,
this Friday I will be there. So if you guys want to see me hanging out with a bunch of lawyers on Eric Hunley's channel, check it out. It'll be on his channel, Laid Back News, exactly. So yeah, I remember talking about it, and I remember I had Viva Fry who was like, "Are you sure that this was a good idea that Johnny Depp brought this lawsuit? Do you really think that this was a good idea?" And I was like, yeah, he was wronged. Like, what are you saying? So, but here I am trying to prove myself as a understanding that being a woman lawyer, I have to prove myself to men. I might keep bringing that up because it's just so ridiculous. Anyhow, but here's the part of this article that, or this paragraph, I guess, that has really caused quite a Twitter NATO, is this parenthetical right here saying Majeka and that umbrella guy did not respond to requests for comment. To which I said, this says I didn't respond to requests for comment. I know I've gotten a lot of emails over the past 2 months, but I've just double checked for your name, Taylor Lorenz, and I see no email from you. Also, I didn't suddenly pivot. I started covering this before the trial began. And this is something that I didn't realize that this would catch as much attention as it did, because I literally was just saying, this is a statement in here that is inaccurate. Like, I checked for her first name, her last name, Washington Post, every single time before this. I had an email from a reporter first that said, hey, I have a media request or whatever, like a request for comment. Would you like to talk to me about whatever about this trial? So that's the place where I went to look. So I shouted this out. I got a little bit of attention. A couple hours later, I get a DM from Taylor on Twitter saying like, hey, I'm so sorry about getting our wires crossed, something. Here's my phone number if you want to call me and talk to me. And so anyhow, she's admitting that she didn't reach out to me beforehand in this Twitter DM. I didn't see until later that she had also DM'd me on Instagram. She DM'd me on Instagram 10 minutes after she DM'd me on Twitter. So
that's important. Like a good old Telltale Games adventure game, you should remember that.
Remember that detail. 10 minutes after the Twitter DM, which was 2 hours after this tweet right here.
I feel like I have your timeline down on this as much as I had Depp v. Heard down.
You do, because you've been a part of it, Rick. Because remember, like the next morning, you were talking about this article, so I popped onto your live stream to talk about it, and that's when you caught the stealth edit.
Yeah, that happened. Well, you see, Alita, you saying I didn't know it would catch on that much. I see this go out from you almost immediately because I'm whatever. I'm futzing on Twitter. I'm like, oh, I'm covering that. And so that becomes Hangouts and Headlines the next morning. And then I'm ho-humming along. Alita might drop in. We had been talking and I arrive at that paragraph and I say, wait, no, I have a note in my head about this is where we need to talk about the thing. And it's gone.
It's gone. Yep. That parenthetical is missing. And there's no note. There's nothing at the top or at the bottom indicating that there has been some kind of a change, which is not according to journalistic standards from what I understand.
It's not according to YouTube comment standards. Those things say edited when they're edited. Come on now, Washington Post.
They do indeed. So then we've got, okay. Well,
just please for me.
Then we've got the home page. Okay, hang on.
Oh my God, we all retweeted that, huh?
Hey, lots of stuff that was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Camille.
I've had a bunch of people floating into my DMs and in my mentions and stuff. It's been very interesting, and retweeting all kinds of stuff. So then we had a couple iterations of edits, right? So then there was that the editor's note block that went up top that basically said,
whoa, hold on, we had the interim edit first. We had an edit that went to the corrections that said we inaccurately described our communications with Majeka and that umbrella guy.
Yes.
And that's an interim edit. This is one of the many parade of edits.
There was a stealth edit, right?
So there's a stealth edit, right?
Yeah.
They take out the sentence entirely. They don't say anything about it. And that's a stealth edit. Then they have an interim comment that they add. They add a sentence that says something along the lines of, we inaccurately described what happened. And then I think Alita and Umbrella Guy continue to push back on that. And I have a tweet out that says, does that describe not ever contacting them? And then putting it in your article. And then you get the editor's note.
Yeah.
Then you get the freaking article on top of the thing.
And if that prior editor's note that just said, the statements about reaching out to them were inaccurate, if they had ended it there, I would have been fine. I would have just chalked this up to a reporter that is being lazy or incompetent, right? Who knows nothing about me or my channel, who just happened to pull up a Business Insider article about me, browsed through it, decided to pluck a few things out of there, leaving out a lot of context, and basically just say, we'll run with this. It fits within my narrative that these are people that don't make sense to be talking about this trial, and yet they're talking about it and they're profiting off of it. So, but it didn't stop there. There was another editor's note. So let's pull that up.
Do you like editor's notes? Because I got your editor notes inside your editor notes.
Well, here is this one.
Wait, you've highlighted a phrase already.
I have. I did it before I posted it on Twitter because I was mad. Because this showed me that they then backtracked from their honesty to add information that was not accurate, which to me felt like, okay, they've now gone from lack of care or laziness or incompetence to now lying.
Mm-hmm. Quick question. Can you turn down Kurt a little bit because it's coming in pretty hot? Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. It might be your mic gain, but I have just turned you down as well.
Well, another sad moment for me.
No, that's okay. It happens. Mine adjusts itself all the time, and I don't understand why. But okay, so here's my screenshot from the Washington Post. When I saw this, I was a little mad. I'm not gonna lie. And the most ironic part here is that this right here, the Washington Post, "Democracy dies in darkness," is just so ironic with this case. But the editor's note. Okay, let's read through the editor's note, and I will point out to you the parts that are inaccurate.
In the corrections, it's still inaccurate. Keep
still
trying.
inaccurate.
Keep trying. Maybe you'll get it right someday.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, the editor's note. This is still I just checked right before we started talking about this one last time just to make sure it still says this. It's still when I checked 10 or 20 minutes ago, it still says this, which is inaccurate. So it says, editor's note, the first published version of this story stated incorrectly that internet influencers Alita Majeka and That Umbrella Guy had been contacted for comment before publication. Again, still no mention of the fact that I'm a lawyer, but okay. In fact, only Majeka was asked via Instagram.
to which I immediately DM Alita and go, "Were you?"
No.
Which is why I mentioned earlier that the timing was it was published. I tweeted about it. I got a Twitter DM from Miss Lorenz, and then 10 minutes after that, I got an Instagram DM from Miss Lorenz. Which, by the way, the text of that refers to the Twitter DM. She says, "Hey, I just sent you a DM on Twitter too." So it's very frustrating because this is very easily verifiable, very easily impeachable information, right? Like, the only reason why those DMs are not public is because I have a personal aversion to making DMs public. But if it comes to a certain point where I feel like it is absolutely necessary, I might do it because there has been so much time at this point. It's been a week. It's been a week since this whole thing started, and it still is not correct. I just might take screenshots and post them on Twitter as well, just to show that the Washington Post clearly does not value accuracy because they still have this version on their page. And then
I saw a news article that ran that this morning, Alita.
Ran what? Which
that
aspect?
The Washington Post still has not changed despite your admonitions that the Instagram is very clearly labeled after the publication time of the article. I saw them re-up on it, 7 this morning.
Yeah. Well, send me the link because I haven't seen that one. But yeah. After the story was published, it says, the Post continued to seek comment from Majeka via social media and queried That Umbrella Guy for the first time. Well, I believe that the second half of that, about querying That Umbrella Guy for the first time, seems to be accurate based on what he has been publicly saying on Twitter. But this first half of this other sentence is not correct. After the story was published, the Post continued to seek comment from Majeka via social media. Continuing to seek comment would imply that they had actually sought comment from me before it was published, which they did not. They absolutely did not in any fashion. None whatsoever. No medium. Not by email, not by DM, not by carrier pigeon, not by smoke signals, nothing. Not even by telepathy. Come on, guys. Nothing. Like, let's be clear about this. So trying to add these details to try to like make it look like they're suddenly accurate is not correct. During that process, the Post removed the incorrect statement from the story, but did not note its removal, a violation of our corrections policy. The story has been updated to note that Majeka declined to comment for the story and that Umbrella Guy could not be reached for comment. I did not decline to comment. I never declined to comment. I commented publicly, as did that Umbrella Guy. So this is also not accurate. There are so many inaccuracies in this editor's note. So this needs to be updated again, please. I would very much appreciate that. A previous story of this version also inaccurately attributed a quote to Adam Waldman, a lawyer for Johnny Depp. The quote described how he contacted some internet influencers and has been removed. So this was my response. What? Washington Post, I will say this again. I was not reached out to by Taylor Lorenz for comment until after my tweet below. She reached out to me by IG DM after she did on Twitter. Both DMs were sent to me after I called her out here. Please stop lying and take the L. Take the L is in the loss. Just agree that you lost and move on.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
So that's where that stands. There has been no change from there. Taylor has Miss Lorenz has, changed her profile to hidden at various points in time. She has railed about radical influencers. I don't see myself as a radical. I see myself as actually relatively fair and neutral in a lot of ways. I try to be fair to both sides on my coverage of just about everything, even where I have made a particular conclusion. So the fact that she's trying to, paint this whole situation as, as like, I don't know, it seems like she's trying to turn it into a political thing. It's not political. I'm not a political channel. I'm not a political voice.
Yeah, she mentions right-wing media right before she talks about radicalized influencers.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what she's getting at. If she's including me with those radicalized influencers, or if she's talking about like other voices on Twitter and that have other followings. I don't know. But how could I not conclude that she's including me in that, right? Because she doesn't talk to me. She doesn't talk about me as a lawyer. That's for sure. She talks about me as an influencer. So it would be reasonable to assume that she's grouping me in with that group. So anyhow, those are my thoughts on that whole fiasco. Unfortunately, it's like it could have been a nothing burger. It could have been one correction and then, preferably referring to me as a lawyer, or mentioning my darn channel name, and then B, to correct that statement about reaching out to us. It seems like that's such a non-issue that has grown into such a huge issue because of the fact that they are doubling down on it in a weird way.
Oh, but it's so much more fun this way.
Well, it's super bizarre though. Like the easiest thing in the world to do is to say, "Hey, we don't know how that line got in there. We regret the error." Like that's the correction. And the fighting with it. I know you said that the second part was accurate, Alita, but it wasn't. Like if you go and look at what they actually did on that interim correction, they added back in the line that said that you declined to comment, and then their interim correction was the story has been amended to note the post's attempts to reach Alita Majeka and that Umbrella Guy for comment, and previous versions omitted or inaccurately described those attempts, but they added back in the line at the end of each of your sentences. So that was the interim step that they took. And then they got a lot of pushback from, me and from other folks like me. And then
show them, Rich.
I've had some interactions with Ms. Lorenz. And so then they go out with the editor's note. And then it's like, that's got to be the right one, right? You've put 3 paragraphs at the top of your article. And that's when I see, oh, there's a verifiable fact. That Instagram fact can go one way or the other. Alita, talk to us. Is this true? And I actually had missed that you were yelling at them in the middle of the night. about that particular point, and then they haven't fixed it, which is weird, right? Because I don't know that this was part of your story, but Taylor Lorenz goes out with a bit of a long form Twitter diatribe on whatever day that is. It's Saturday night, I think, something along those lines. And one of the things she says in her tweets is, after the publication, I reached out to the 2 YouTubers. And I say, yeah, that checks out, but you know that your current article says that you reached out before, at least to Alita. And
also, after I published it, I reached out. It's a little bit late.
Of course it's late. Of course it's late, but in terms of explaining,
can be viewed as also the article itself could be viewed as reaching out. So technically, just by publishing it, I guess you're reaching out in some sense.
Come contact me as I write about you. No, I mean, I would be willing to bet that there's some kind of journalistic standard practice over at the Washington Post that says if you're mentioning someone, you have to at least attempt to reach out. So they plugged in that parenthetical, didn't think you'd see it or notice or whatever. And then you called it out. But then I don't know why there isn't a rapid retreat saying, I don't know, that's weird. How'd that get in there? We regret the error.
Yeah, Legalbytes, why haven't you responded to that cease and desist I haven't sent you from Mike, who I haven't retained yet?
Gee, I don't know. Maybe it's because I didn't have notice of it.
I just can't believe that they chose this hill to die on. It's not a big. It's like you can say "oops" and then it's over. It's verifiably false.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, if you take me, the Washington Post has no credibility with me. It hasn't for 20 years. Okay, that's fine. But that sort of thing. This is taking your stupid to a whole new audience. A lot of people are watching this trial, and you're going to lie about obviously disprovable things
in an article about
the group of people who never knew before.
In an article about the fact that we have standards and these idiots don't. It's the craziest, most ironic thing you've ever seen. And I agree with Alita that it's fantastic because it's not actually about substance at all. It's not about politics. It's not about Depp, Heard, Me Too, anything else. It's about just lying to your listeners or your readers.
It's just straight up dishonesty. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Whereas I've been saying lately, it's about the stupid.
I see a question in the chat. Why not call the editor that reached out to you, Alita? No editor reached out to me.
Yeah.
No editor.
Well, and there's a certain lack of trust there, as one could imagine, for anybody interacting with her on this particular topic.
Right. So anyhow, it's been a very strange sort of like week with this whole Twitter NATO that has resulted. But I went on Breaking Points yesterday, talked to Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty. I had a great time chatting with them about this and about the trial and some of the media responses to the trial. So I will add links to those 2 videos in the description below. I had a really great time, and I would love to talk to them again about anything really, any sort of legal topics that they would like to have a lawyer on there. So I look forward to hopefully more collaboration with them, but they were great. So
as long as we're pitching, I do have you rolling into the channel discussing this the morning it happens with the stealth edit. If you want to come out and check out my video on Hangouts.
So before anyone else was writing extra articles about this whole fiasco, Rick Hogue over at Hogue Law was talking about it in the next morning on Hangouts and Headlines. So, and I will say there is no one that gets material out faster or more accurately with that speed than Rick Hogue. Like one of these days,
it was accidental to find a freaking stealth edit.
He's a ninja.
One of these days, I will get some content out on something that's like breaking news before Rick Hogue, and I will consider myself to have like one. It'll be like the end of Breakfast Club with like the fists in the air, like yes, finally did it, because it's probably never going to happen.
No doubt. No, I have no doubt. No, but I mean it's been really interesting to follow, and when all this happened, and when Ms. Lorenz went out with her tweets, that's why I did a special Sunday morning episode, because it's just so crazy. You've nailed it on the head, which is why in the world would you commit to these inaccuracies? Why would you add the Instagram? Why does it need to say that you were contacted first anyway? Just put you in the same bucket. We didn't contact them. Why would you try?
Yeah, I don't understand why adding that extra detail about Instagram when it is verifiable. It is impeachable. It's not like there was some sort of a phone conversation that wasn't recorded that, like, you know, one side can say, well, I interpreted it this way, and then the other side says, well, I interpreted it this way. No, this is like you look at timestamps. Timestamps will do it. So I don't understand why.
It doesn't make any sense at all. It has been interesting.
It just expects you to have a time turner and to respond to things that haven't happened yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think secretly they actually love us. They don't want to say it, but what I thought this was all done, and I was back to doing sovereign citizen stuff and having fun with it.
Oh my God,
and then I turn on and I click on Rick, and I'm like, God, they just can't stop with the stupid. It's too good. Even when I was done with that, just yesterday, I think he's not here, Nate the lawyer.
Yep.
He comes out. They come out with an article that, by the way, we're all wrong. We're all wrong. They've got the definitive source. Mr. Toobin has decided that Amber was wronged and the jury is wrong.
Speaking of
all of Law Tube got it wrong. I'm like,
you know what you're not allowed to talk about? You're not allowed to talk about these kinds of issues, Mr. Toobin. We don't have to explain why.
Well, they needed to bring in a guy with the highest of ethical standards to talk down to us.
Of course. Yeah, no, I watched that one too, and I thought that was his reaction was just hilarious.
Wrong.
It was just hilarious.
Don't die on that hill, Kurt. No, and it's just that the height of irony is that this could happen on any article. It still would have been an interesting news story. The fact that it happens on what amounts to an ethics hit piece on content creators for the purposes of elevating the ethics of legacy media, who then has 4 separate corrections that are still incorrect. Yes. Amazing. I mean, you can't write this stuff. This would be kicked out of the screenwriting room.
This is where fact is stranger than fiction, right? But let's turn to, I mean, unless there's anything else that anybody wants to say, get it out of your system about this topic before we move on to the next piece that we'll talk about. It's a little bit of a what is it? Like a
group therapy session.
No. The next one is, it's a good one. It's a little bit, people would call this like a white pill, like this is a good example.
I could use a white pill in my life.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Let's do that.
Okay. Well, this one is, I mean, it's a little bit of some misfortune, but it's ultimately, I love the actual article. And yes, I am biased. This is a friend of ours. The part that is unfortunate is that, so Natalie Whittingham Burrell, also known as Natalie Lawyer Chick, she was reached out to by a major publication asking her to write basically a piece on the Depp v. Heard trial and saying, like, hey, like we want to possibly publish it. And so she was like, okay, great. So she spent the weekend writing it. She wrote this beautiful thing. And then they said, actually, just kidding. Never mind. We're not going to publish it. So she was like, okay, I'll publish it myself. So I wanted to talk about this because this is a fantastic example of someone who should be writing these kinds of articles coming out of this trial because she actually watched the damn thing. So let's go through it. And I will also put a link to this one in the description below. I'm a ding dong because I didn't actually do this ahead of time. I could have done this to prepare so that folks can actually go. But for sure, how about this? I will put it in the chat right now so that you guys can go check out this article, give it some love, seriously, because it is so worth it. There you go. It's in the chat. And in fact, we'll even pin it here so that
pin away. Alita, I just looked at the clock. I have to go practice some law.
Okay.
But I think this is a fantastic editorial from Natalie.
Yes.
And I'm trying to work out having her on the headline show later this week. So hopefully we get to have that happen and she can talk about her authorship on this. But absolutely go through it with everybody. It's well worth your time. Thank you for having me, Alita. And I will see you on the next time I'm invited over here.
Yeah. See you, Rick. It was great having you. Bye. Okay. So yes, let's go through this one. I definitely encourage everyone to go and check it out as well, because, I don't want people to just say, okay, well, I read it through the live stream so that I don't have to go and check it out, because we do, those clicks do matter. Right. So to get more views on this, and get more likes on this, it's on medium.com. So anyhow, let's go through it. So, of course, written by Natalie Whittingham Burrell, she said the jury had no choice but to rule against Amber Heard. She said, in examining the law and the facts, the reason that the jury found in favor of Johnny Depp is clear. Amber Heard was not telling the truth. Before the trial began, I paid little attention to the fact that Johnny Depp was suing his ex-wife, Amber Heard, for defamation of character outside of media reports. I had the impression that Depp and Heard were involved in a toxic and dysfunctional relationship. I saw pictures of bruises to Heard's face and assumed that Depp was just a growing list of male celebrities exposed for being abusive at the peak of the #MeToo movement. And that's a lot of us, right? That was a lot of us coming into this trial. When the trial began, I myself was immersed in a double homicide trial. She's a criminal defense attorney. I didn't have time to pay attention to this saga. As the media attention around the trial grew, my subscribers to my YouTube channel, Natalie Lawyer Chick, began to request that I cover this case. So when my own trial was done, I began to catch up on Depp versus Heard. The entire trial was fascinating, but not for the reasons that I expected. It is exceptionally difficult for a celebrity to win a defamation case. Like all other litigants, Depp had to prove that Heard defamed him by a preponderance of the evidence. However, as a celebrity, Depp had the additional burden of proving by clear and convincing evidence that Heard acted with actual malice in defaming him. The jury needed to have a firm belief that Heard made the statements with knowledge that they were false or with a willful disregard for the truth. Heard's credibility was crucial in deciding whether she defamed Depp. In reaching their decision, the jury was instructed to determine whether she was credible or not based on several factors, including whether her testimony was inconsistent with or contradicted other evidence. Based on the rubric provided to the jury and the facts actually presented at trial, I came to a jarring conclusion. Amber Heard was not credible. I completely agree with everything so far. For example, Heard's allegation that Depp trashed their penthouse and caused bruising to her face in May of 2016 was contradicted by testimony from 3 police officers, body camera footage, and the front desk manager of the residence. None of these witnesses appeared to have motive to testify in favor of Depp. Exactly. Those witnesses were so crucial in this case because they didn't know that this was Johnny Depp's place. They didn't know that Johnny Depp was the alleged abuser. They didn't know who Amber Heard was. So there was no issue of celebrity. There was no issue of like, who is this person? And I'll just defend the man right away. And they have certain standards that they have to meet if they think that there is DV. Like they understand that that they can be sued for not doing their job properly. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the police always do what they're supposed to. Of course, I will point that out. And as Natalie would also point out, she's a criminal defense attorney, right? Like she's going to be one of the first people to say that the cops cannot be trusted at all times, right? But she found those officers' testimonies to be credible and incredibly important as well. And then she goes on. That is only a microcosm of the inconsistencies and contradictions throughout the trial. As the trial unfolded, it became clear either most of the witnesses were lying or Amber Heard was. This was not an issue of memory; it was an issue of honesty. Heard's attorneys argued that these contradictions didn't matter. They told the jury that even if they did not believe Heard for some of those incidents, but believed Heard for at least one of the incidents, Depp must lose. However, believing Heard for even one of the incidents was difficult because there were inconsistencies in all the incidents. This is exactly correct. These contradictions were so pervasive that they appeared to be the result of purposeful deception. That the jury awarded Depp over $10 million in damages is proof that they felt strongly about the heinousness of those falsehoods. There are no perfect victims, and even the most credible people will have inconsistencies here or there. However, juries are usually able to sort through the facts and decide whether the allegations are true, even with minor witness inconsistencies. This is, again, so true. You're bound to have some level of inconsistencies, but the jury's going to decide whether those inconsistencies are like minor things that don't really matter, or if they're indicative of somebody that is not being fully honest. What happened in Depp versus Heard was not reflective of the insignificant inconsistencies of genuine victims. Heard's credibility issues were far outside the norm, and to ignore them would be dishonest. Therefore, the call to believe all women as a solution to the problem with physical and sexual abuse is alarming, dangerous, and counterproductive. This is best explained if we outright state the inverse: disbelieve all men. This framework asks for the public, the media, and the courts to disregard the presumption of innocence. Huge deal. right? Presumption of innocence. That's a huge deal in our legal system. The problem with allegations of sexual abuse being swept under the rug cannot be solved with treating those accused of abuse as though they are guilty without the accused being given an opportunity to be heard in a court of law. Absolutely, completely hits the nail on the head. Completely. Yes, 100%. Yes. Historically, when the popular zeitgeist has coalesced around an automatic assumption of guilt, the consequences have been disastrous and irreversible. In 1955, when a white woman accused Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black boy, of sexually harassing her, Till was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. It took until 2017 for that woman to admit her allegations were false. We still see the effects of that case today. I have represented both men and women who have been wrongfully accused of abuse. While most abuse victims are truthful, wrongful accusations do happen. It is only through the presumption of innocence and a fair trial that the accused has any hope of clearing their name. Instead of asking the public to believe all women, we should ask for accusations of abuse to be taken seriously, investigated thoroughly, and for the accused to be given a fair trial. I have said this many times. It should not be listen and believe. It should not be listen and believe. It should be listen and investigate. Listen and investigate thoroughly with an open mind and as thoroughly and fairly as possible. The media response to this trial has been fraught with concern that this case will have a chilling effect on women seeking help. It may, but not for the reasons the media says it will. This case could have a chilling effect on abuse victims because anyone who watched the trial learned that Amber Heard may have deliberately created tales of horrific abuse to gain leverage in her divorce proceedings. Potential victims may be afraid of being stereotyped and disbelieved, not because Heard told the truth and wasn't believed, but because after having her claims carefully vetted in a court of law, Heard may have lied in such an egregious way and given ammunition to bad faith actors seeking to discredit true victims. That is also true. The media spectacle in this case began in 2016 when Heard, accompanied by her publicist, filed for a protective order against Depp. In the trial, the jury heard evidence which implied that Heard herself or a member of her team may have alerted the paparazzi giant when she sought the protective order. In addition, the jury was treated to Heard directly asking them on the stand to look to the media coverage surrounding the case. This is a completely inappropriate request in a trial where the jury was ordered not to watch any of the media coverage. To now allege that the jury was tainted by the media coverage, where Heard herself may have initiated the media circus and certainly improperly asked the jury to look to the media, is confounding. It's true. She did say during her rebuttal testimony when she turned to the jury and said, yeah, so, look me up. That's insane. Anyway, this also ignores that much of the mainstream media coverage surrounding this case was supportive of Heard. There has been no evidence that the media coverage influenced the jury. However, there has been ample evidence in the trial itself that Heard made false and defamatory statements about Depp with actual malice. The jury had no choice but to find against her. Boom. Round of applause. Completely agree. 100%. Right?
Well done, Natalie.
Right? Yes. Natalie, please take a bow. This is fantastic. I 100% agree with all of this.
And the New York Times didn't want to run it, huh? What do you know?
Well,
yeah, well, I actually missed some of this article because when I printed it off to cover it, for some reason, some of it got lost. So some of this I hadn't seen before through my own technological errors. Like, for example, I hadn't seen the sentence where she had said, the basically the contra of believe all women is necessarily disbelieve all men, because that would logically be necessary. And pointing that out is a problem. And as I said in my own review, it's like, well, you brought Emmett Till into this. That was a no-no. You brought in the suggestion that women might lie or exaggerate about violence to themselves or others for potential leverage in a divorce proceeding or child custody proceeding. I mean, that's a no-no. So like she committed at least 3 or 4 unforgivable sins in this article. So yeah, they were never going to publish her, but it was a brilliant piece of work.
And when you're talking about sins, you're saying that facetiously, not that you would call those sins.
No, the media narrative would call it sins. The pointing out of logic are the sins. Is like you err by reason, which is a whole new concept to me too. So I understand, but like. Yeah, believe all women necessarily. Well, what does that necessarily imply? Well, if you have a woman and a man and you have to believe the woman, what does that necessarily, logically, let's do this formal logic style. with
Yes.
the U and the upside down U and the triangles and everything. We'll do this in formal logic notation. What does it
Yes.
necessarily require? It necessarily requires you to disbelieve the man. So
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, so this I mean, this is a fantastic article, and just I wanted to, it's like we often like to point out the ridiculous takes and talk about how stupid they are or how bad they are, but I wanted to point out one really good example of what we could have out there in the public. And so, it's on medium.com. It's unfortunate that the newspaper that, asked her for this, ended up rejecting it. But it's unfortunate for them, actually, more than anything, because
really is.
this would have looked very balanced coming from them. They could have built up a lot of credibility, because you've got a lot of people that are, I understand that distrust of the mainstream media in a lot of ways has had like a political flavor to it. It seems like people on the right have traditionally been the ones that are distrusting of the mainstream media, and people on the left not so much. That's what it seems like, just broad brushstrokes. Of course, there's individuals in between.
Oh, it's that way.
But the people coming out of the Justice for Johnny Depp camp are politically very diverse, and they don't trust the media, because they don't trust the media's coverage of this case in the years that this litigation has spanned. So you've got a lot of people that are looking to the mainstream media and saying, okay, we have all seen for ourselves what happened in this trial, and you're trying to tell us that this is something entirely different. I feel like you are gaslighting me. That's, in a case where gaslighting is a thing, because in domestic violence, that is something that comes up, is this idea of gaslighting. So it's a word that comes to mind very easily. And you've got a lot of people that are already have that on the brain, and they see the responses from the traditional media, what have you. And that basically are saying, like, I no longer trust you. Like, you're trying to place me into a political box that I don't see for myself. I see the facts in front of me, and you're trying to put this into a weird box that doesn't fit. So what is that going to do for you? Like, it doesn't make you look any good, right? Like, those controls are not working. So anyhow,
well, and I could tell immediately. I only knew about it afterwards, but I knew that they would never publish this, because what they want to do is attack the person, and they've already done that with us, saying we're all right-wing conspiracy theorists. I've known Natalie for a while. I mean, just through YouTube, but we've been through a lot of things together, and I can tell you, Natalie is not a right-wing conspiracy theorist. She's many things, but she is most decidedly not that.
No,
she's a criminal defense attorney. Whatever. She's a very reasonable person, but you cannot characterize her that way with any credibility whatsoever.
Exactly. 100%. Totally agree. And that's just another example. It's another example of how this does not work in the political sort of framework that people want to sort of wedge this case into. It doesn't work. I mean, even if you look at the parties, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, I don't think either one of them are conservative based on the things that we've known about the things that they've said and the things that they've done. You know what I mean? Like, so, anyhow. Okay. On that note, that was a fantastic article written by Natalie. And there's a link to it in the pinned comment. So be sure to check it out. Read it for yourselves. And if you have a Medium account, go in and give it some applause, because it absolutely deserves it. Share it around on Twitter and elsewhere, because Natalie deserved to have her voice be amplified during this time, at a time when you've got a bunch of crappy takes. This is a really good take that deserves to be shouted around, off the mountaintops, for sure. So speaking of bad takes, let's go to our final.
I thought you were going to say, let's go to the super chats. I was going
to. No, those are not bad takes. Yeah. All right, let's go to this bad take.
Oh dear. I haven't actually seen this yet all the way through.
Here it comes.
Oh, you haven't?
No, okay. I haven't. I've just heard talk about it. So this is
okay.
Let's do this thing.
So I will say, she's gone Elaine Bredehoft has, of course, gone on multiple shows to talk about this case. She canceled the one with Shanley Painter, right? Painter's her last name, I think. Yeah. She canceled that one with Court TV suddenly because she said that she had an emergency call back to court or something like that. Hasn't rescheduled, and yet has scheduled another one with CNN since then, I guess, or had one with CNN. So anyway, there's some like weird shady business going on there. But anyhow, she's gone on this like little mini press tour. And she has the same talking points across the board, right? So I'll kind of summarize these before, and we'll watch it and we'll pause it and react as we go through it. But so she talks about how this is a setback for women, how evidence was suppressed, how the jury was bedazzled by Johnny Depp's celebrity status. And then she calls it a tale of two trials. Right. Like, so I referred to this earlier because somebody in a super chat asked about that, because she talks about how it's a tale of two trials, of course, referring to the book, A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, talking about London and Paris during some historical times. Right. As we won't get too far into history, but anyhow, but this idea that you have, one trial was like a shining example of exactly what was supposed to happen, and the other one was not. And I wouldn't agree with that at all. Well, I would agree with that, but the Virginia case is exactly what should have happened. But it also was, it definitely highlighted some terrible lawyering, and that terrible lawyering was done by Elaine Bredehoft. So, this idea that like it was the best of times.
That's what you really think, Lita.
I will. I'm at this point now, based on what I've seen from her media appearances, that I'm like, I'm done. But
out of F's to give.
Yeah, she still continues with this point of that the op-ed never mentioned Johnny Depp. It doesn't name him specifically. And then she decries the cameras in the courtroom, talking about how social media was anti-Amber Heard. And then she says that they basically, the conclusion was they weren't fighting fair. No, not fighting fair. Fun times.
Oh, Lord.
How?
Well, let's watch for ourselves. Let's watch for ourselves, shall we?
I'm open-minded. Sell me, Elaine.
All right, cool. Are you really open-minded? So okay. So those are the basic talking points that she seems to have across the board. She's got these, it's almost like she's got these check marks that she's got to check the box, right, to make sure that she hits these certain things. And I don't really understand fully why she's doing it. I've got some theories, I guess, that we could talk about, but let's first get to the actual interview itself.
Elementor
Can you guys hear it?
The web
I can hear
and actually,
a pixel perfect web design master.
Sorry about the ad.
No worries.
Both condemnation and praise.
Oh, and we'll start from the beginning, shall we?
A Virginia jury's decision to side with Johnny Depp in his defamation lawsuit is drawing both condemnation and praise. The verdict came after 6 weeks of very dramatic testimony from both sides. She claimed that he abused her while he said she was the abuser. In his reaction, Depp wrote, "The goal of bringing the case was to reveal the truth, and that truth never perishes." Elaine Charlson Bredehoft is the attorney for Amber Heard and is with us now. And we should mention, we did also reach out to Johnny Depp's team, but they declined to be interviewed this morning. Elaine, thank you. We're so very glad you're here.
Thank you.
We heard Amber's reaction to the verdict yesterday. This seems to be a huge victory for Johnny Depp this morning.
Yeah, a major setback for women, for women inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom.
I knew that first that first statement was going to get a reaction.
It's horrible.
A setback for women.
It's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing to the profession of law that she comes on a program and utters idiocy like that. It really is. I mean, I guess you can't control it all, but you're like, it's embarrassing.
So what can we conclude based on the earlier article? It must be that she's not really trying very hard to be a lawyer because she's not sucking up to the male power structure by throwing the women under the bus. Or I'm just trying to put all the pieces together in a giant puzzle. I'm not sure this is necessarily good for my mental health. Let's read more.
All right, let's keep listening. Why is this a major setback for women inside and outside the courtroom, Elaine?
Because basically what this said, Amber had an enormous amount of evidence.
Mountains of
a lot
evidence
of it
even.
was suppressed in this case as opposed to the UK. But look at all the women who have no evidence. All these women who suffer from domestic violence, domestic abuse, they don't have evidence. And basically what this jury said is unless you pull out your cell phone and you tape record your spouse beating you, you're out of luck.
But Elaine, I think it was bigger than that because you have the evidence.
If you have no evidence, you shouldn't win ever. You need to be proved guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case or a preponderance in a civil matter. For her to suggest otherwise, it betrays a complete lack of understanding of the law. That's not even the case. She's being disingenuous. She understands the law and wants to pull this manipulation. It's so frustrating. I can't even deal with it.
No, you said it better. I was going to make a point, but then you made the better point because you made the underlying point of like you just completely reject the premise completely, and kudos to you because what happened is instantly proven guilty. What happened to maybe if you have absolutely no evidence, maybe that's a problem. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Trials are won and lost on the evidence. And I will say, that there are DV survivors that don't have things recorded. Those cases are very difficult because it becomes a he said, she said kind of case. Yes, of course, I will agree that those cases are very difficult. But this is not a case where any of that happened, right? So this case does not affect the reality of those cases. That has always been the reality, right? Like this case has nothing to do with those. So let's continue on.
You say, but they did not believe her. Why do you think they did not believe her?
I think that a lot of that was that it was Johnny Depp. I think the celebrity status.
But she's a celebrity too.
And it's not only not
she's but she's a celebrity too.
Right.
But you have to remember, it's a tale of two trials.
She doesn't respond to that. She just changes the subject to a tale of two trials.
Yeah.
Like,
that's not going well. Next talking point.
So she it's very interesting how slippery she gets in this interview because she doesn't actually respond to the counterpoints that are being tossed at her. And this is the reason why I showed this one as opposed to other ones, is because it was interesting to me to see some of the pushback that she started to get from the people that she was talking to. Kudos to Gayle King on this for saying like, okay, now hang on a second. Like she also is a celebrity. They both are from Hollywood. So what's your point on that?
But what's difficult about this is still a friendly thing, but she's saying it like she's like serving her up a softball, like, hey, other people are going to say things like this. Can you answer that? And then she doesn't.
Right.
I mean, it's coming from a friendly place, but Elaine just can't deal with it at all.
She could have. I mean, the question was, why didn't the jury believe Amber? And her response was because Johnny Depp. Like, I'm sorry. Yes, he played a wizard in a movie or two, but he is not an actual wizard in real life. He cannot bedazzle people into loving him or hating someone else. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a trial in the first place, right? Well,
I suppose Johnny Depp is guilty of hiring some competent attorneys who cross-examined her and made her look, and betrayed her for the liar that she is. I guess he did that much, but that's sort of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Exactly. So this, it's going to, this idea that he's a celebrity. Okay, but she's a celebrity. Okay, but what about the tale of two trials? Okay, so let's hear about that.
All the evidence came in the UK. Mr. Depp brought that one. The burden of proof was
all the evidence
on the
came
son
in the UK.
in the UK because they had called him.
I'm sorry, we couldn't make it.
Not.
We couldn't make it. All the evidence came in the UK. What is that? 6 words? We couldn't make it 6 words before I freaked out.
Let's just point out a few categories of evidence that didn't come in during the London trial. Expert witness testimony. So nothing about psychology, nothing about doctors or anyone to explain anything from a professional standpoint. No one from Hollywood to explain damages. No one from, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of stuff that did not get into the UK trial. Also, the stuff that was damaging for Amber Heard, Johnny Depp was not able to use that he could have had from the Virginia case, from discovery there. He couldn't use it because she was not a party in this one. There were all kinds of evidentiary limits to what Johnny Depp could use against Amber Heard because she wasn't a party. She was a witness. The other party was the son. Of course, she also doesn't refer to the fact that him suing the son versus him suing Amber Heard is a completely different standard for defamation, regardless of whether we're talking about the UK or the United States.
Well, a bunch of her testimony got in, but she was never cross-examined, which is a huge difference between the two trials. And in fact, I was on with, was it Black Belt barrister? Yeah. And he's shaking. I don't know if it'll happen, but there's some movement for perjury charges against her in the UK at this moment. So to the extent that, yes, the evidence is different, but I don't think it was different in favor of Johnny at any point here. Yeah, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Next. We'll keep
I'm a wife
going.
beater and talked about the domestic violence. He had his opportunity to tell the truth then. And a 3-week trial, he lost. The judge found
he had his opportunity to tell the truth then. He told the same truth then that he did here. How do we know? Because he would have been impeached by his prior statements from before. Otherwise, any minor inconsistency, of course, they use for the purposes of impeachment. So what is she getting at? Elaine, what are you getting at? He had an opportunity to tell the truth. The fact that justice was not served in that case is not an indication that he was telling any less truth then than he is now, or now than ever.
12 acts of domestic violence, including sexual violence. And that came out November 2, 2020. We weren't allowed to tell the jury that.
Well, it's a different...
For obvious reasons, Elaine, that you understand because you're a lawyer. Don't you understand res judicata, claim preclusion, issue preclusion? Come on, Elaine. Like, the fact that she is misrepresenting these legal concepts to the public is infuriating.
Improper
as a lawyer.
Character, evidence, prejudicial evidence. So many things. Yes. Okay.
Yep. So there's a reason why you cannot bring in some other trial that came to a particular judgment, is because you don't want the jury to say, oh, well, that other case ended up with this result. So therefore, like, I don't think that I can come to a different conclusion if some other official body did the otherwise. You know what I mean?
We weren't allowed to tell the jury that. Well, that's only been the law for how long has the United States been the country now? Yeah.
So, yes.
Okay.
System, and the judge, it wasn't a jury, it was a judge. The judge said it was substantially true. And that is significant, and I think surprised a lot of legal analysts.
I think his point there is he's trying to be nice, but he's like, yeah, and that was maybe a wrong decision. Yep. Like that's what I got from his response, was like, he's, being polite, being diplomatic. We were surprised. A lot of legal analysts were surprised. Yeah, because it was wrong. Anyhow.
But, in this case, the jury not only didn't believe Amber Heard, but in ruling that she acted with actual malice, that means she had the intent to cause harm, right? That's a pretty high standard to have proven.
That's not exactly what actual malice
not
is
exactly
either.
True. Yeah. So it means, once again, for louder for the folks in the back, right? As they like to say, actual malice means that you in the context of a defamation case, actual malice is a very specific term that means that you have lied about someone, either knowing that what you're saying is false, or lying with recklessness of recklessness, meaning without any kind of regard for whether or not those are true or false. Reckless disregard is what I should have said. So basically, you're being reckless about whether or not they're true or false. You're just
actual malice has nothing to do with malice. That's the thing.
Yes.
Actual malice has nothing to do with malice.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with a desire to cause pain. It has nothing to do with a desire to hurt someone. It has nothing to do with not liking people. It's a bad name for it. The Supreme Court screwed it up in 66 in the New York Times versus Sullivan. We're stuck with it. So yeah, it doesn't mean malice.
So yeah. So and I will and we're just pointing that out because we are lawyers and we're going to try to pick out accuracies and inaccuracies. But I don't think that he intended, anything one way or another with this. I think he may have even just misstated or something. But he's doing a pretty good job of giving her some pushback so far.
And it's pretty amazing since the op-ed never even mentioned Mr. Depp. You have to remember that what they learned from the UK case.
Oh my God.
Okay.
But she did admit on the stand that she wrote it about him. So I mean, her actual testimony.
That's the thing that is screaming in my head right now is the footage that's rolling in my head of Amber Heard sitting up on the stand on cross-examination during her rebuttal testimony where she says, that's why I wrote the op-ed article about him.
And then Elaine had a fight with her about it. So it's not like she doesn't remember. She's got emotion associated with this memory that's about a week old. Come on.
Right. So she on the stand admitted that it was about him. And so then you've got Elaine who's dancing around in front of, a bunch of people that she's assuming haven't watched the trial, and probably they didn't because it's a long trial. Not everybody has the time to sit and watch the entirety of a 6 to 8 week trial or whatever it was, right? Like it felt like it was forever. And it was. I feel like I've become like a whole new person as a result of this trial. It has shaped my character. But like it's so frustrating because she's saying things, and I understand that she is still representing her as the attorney. And so she's got talking points. She wants to put these arguments out forward, but it is so disingenuous. Like I feel like I wish that I could have been sitting next to her to respond to her and be like, well, Elaine, what about when your own client talked about how it was about him? Because it's so misleading to just have her ramble this BS off for the camera and for people to just be like, oh, well, okay, I'll take her word for it.
Every 5 to 10 words with this woman, I want to have an aneurysm.
And by the way, Elaine also is a Virginia licensed attorney who just tried a case on defamation. So she definitely knows, she definitely understands that Virginia is a jurisdiction that allows for defamation by implication. That's what this whole case was about.
That's what's hard about this. I don't think she's a stupid woman.
Yeah.
She's not being honest.
She can't be this stupid. She can't be this stupid. So she has to be dishonest. Yeah.
I think, maybe.
Is to demonize Amber, which is what they did, and to try to suppress as much of the evidence that came in the UK and did not come in the United States. But the other problem is we had cameras
came in the UK
courtroom.
that didn't come in the US?
Maybe evidence that was kept out on the grounds of hearsay. I don't know exactly what she's referring to specifically. Turn on your mic, Elaine. Yeah, I don't know exactly because I haven't gone through all of the evidence in the UK case, but we did go through when Black Belt Barrister was on the channel here, and he was kind of talking about the court's findings. I mean, there were some like witness statements and whatnot, but I don't know exactly what she's referring to. Like, what smoking gun evidence is she pointing to that would have resulted in the jury coming to a different conclusion? I don't know. I sure would like to know what she's pointing to, and to figure out why it was kept out. Probably because of the rules of evidence, because they exist for a reason. Oh, therapist notes. That's what somebody's saying in the chat. Thank you, Adele Conti. Therapist notes.
Right.
But we saw a deposition testimony from the therapist. We saw. Okay. Oh, self-reported therapist notes. Yeah. Oh, and then Duder's text message, which she'll get to in a second, and we'll talk about that one.
So here we had, not only did we have a group of Depp fans that were there every day, 100 were allowed in. They lined up at 1 o'clock in the morning for their wristbands to be in that courtroom.
False. They lined up a lot earlier than 1 o'clock in the morning. We know that because we have friends that went there.
It was also open to Amber Heard fans. There just aren't any.
That is also true.
There wasn't precondition that you need to be a Depp fan to get a place in line.
It was open to the public. It was open to people who didn't really care about the trial, just wanted to stand in line if they want to. I mean, hey.
Yes, exactly.
At 1 o'clock in the morning for their wristbands to be in that courtroom. But we had everything on camera, and we had tremendous social media that was very, very, very much against Amber.
It was pointed out that that was the first time that a victim of sexual abuse had to testify on live television.
And I fought hard and lost that battle.
No,
okay,
it isn't. No, it isn't.
It is.
No,
that,
it is not.
That presupposes the conclusion.
Yeah, no. You got there before I did. I was about to say saying that she's the first victim of domestic violence to testify on camera presupposes that she is a victim of domestic violence.
Or Johnny Depp might have been.
Yeah, no, it's first time. It may be the first time a victim of domestic violence testified on camera, but it wasn't her.
Yeah, right. And Johnny Depp didn't allege sexual violence, so there's that. But yeah. So this is the part where Gail starts to lose me, because I'm like, okay, hang on. You have to believe that Amber Heard is a domestic violence victim in order to say that. But maybe she's saying that to elicit more conversation with Elaine. That could be,
That's why I told you it's a friendly interview, and she still can't handle it.
Yep. You're exactly right. And Elaine is talking about, and I fought hard to keep the cameras out of the courtroom. And yet she's complaining about the mass of people outside the courthouse. Does she not understand that the reasoning for Judge Ascarati allowing cameras in the courtroom was to prevent there being a massive mob of people outside the courthouse? Yes, there was a massive mob of people outside the courthouse, but imagine just how big that massive mob of people around the courthouse would have been if they had not allowed cameras in the courtroom, right? It would have been even bigger. It would have been more people saying, I got to get my butt into those benches in the gallery so that I can actually see what's going on. So the fact that she's like kind of converging those two does not make any sense, because having cameras in the courtroom meant that there were fewer people outside of the courthouse. Obviously, you can't prove that, because we can't go back in time and change the decision and then take data on that, right? But we can just look at human nature. We can look at people like me, for example. I decided to live stream this entire trial from start to finish before the trial began. And I remember saying, if for some reason they decide to go back on having cameras in the courtroom, I will fly my butt to Virginia and go and watch this trial and report on it daily. Like, I feel that passionately about covering this trial and seeing it for myself, so that, I don't have to rely on headlines from people, or headlines from the news. So I'm one example. There are many, many, many other people that probably felt very similarly. So trying to converge those two, I think, is also further disingenuous. And the fact that there are a lot of people on social media that are very anti-Amber Heard is not an indication that the trial was unfair. That's just an indication of the public's reaction to the trial.
Right.
So,
This is another point I make sometimes, where people confuse strong opinions with bias, and I reject this premise, because just because I have a strong opinion doesn't mean I'm biased. If the Lady Justice may be blind, but she has scales in her hands, and if the scales tip, that doesn't mean she's biased. It means she's weighing the evidence neutrally. So I get this a lot, or I see this idea a lot, that strong opinions mean bias. And it's like, well, if the evidence is what it is, it's like, it's just the weight of the scale. So minor point of irritation, but one among many in this thing where we still haven't earned 3 minutes of glory.
Yeah. Okay. Let's continue with this dumpster fire.
So it should not have happened.
So I'm a former NFL player, and after a hard loss, it's easy to wake up and point to the other side. Oftentimes, I realized the better thing to do was to look in the mirror. What mistakes did I make as a player? What mistakes did our coaching staff make? And then how can we improve from there? Do you feel like you guys made any mistakes along the way? Do you feel like Amber made a mistake while she was on the stand? Because you're saying it's the celebrity, it's Johnny, it's the people who support him. But what about you and your team?
I love this question so much. It's such a great point.
Does she accuse him of mansplaining? Because that's what I'm waiting for.
Oh no, she gets all slippery again.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, the questions
I'm
on point
it.
makes good sense, of course.
Yeah. You can see the wheels turning in her brain that she's like, how am I going to answer this? Because this is directly on point. Yeah. What is going on? And she can't ask to approach the bench to make up time to figure out a response. She's got to answer on her feet. So how does she answer? Elaine, what is your answer?
Well, and that's an excellent question. And to say, and Amber even said on the stand, I am not perfect. I am a human being. These people were giving her death threats. They threatened to microwave her baby. This is the kind of social media she was getting. So are any of us perfect? No. Is there something else we feel we should have done? Yes, absolutely. I redo my closings 100 times afterwards, whether I win or lose. That's part of being a good lawyer, a good trial lawyer is right. There's always something. But I think that there were a lot of influences here.
I could tell you what any of those things are, but
she's once again just sort of slides into a lot of influences. Mm-hmm. So before I play the rest of that statement, so you could see her kind of fill the air with like, okay, yeah, that's a really great question, and yeah, even Amber was talking about how she's not perfect and I'm not perfect, and
thank you, Senator, for that question. Shows love, wisdom on your part to be so wise to ask such a great and material question to my candidacy. Yeah, we know what you're doing. We got it.
The problem is she says, yeah, but then she doesn't talk about any of the, like, this could have been a very human moment for her where she could have said, yeah, I made some errors. There were some direct examinations, some cross examinations that I definitely could have done better. And I understand why you wouldn't necessarily want to air all of those mistakes publicly if you plan to appeal, because you want your strongest argument out there, right? Like you want to put your best foot forward if you are still representing this case and you still plan to use certain arguments about, why this verdict was ultimately unjust or improper. So, I understand to a certain extent why she wouldn't want to go into all of the mistakes that she has made, but she could have had a very human moment that people could have really empathized with, to say like, okay, like I believe that she's taken to heart the fact that she messed up in a few respects during this trial, especially because she's the one that has garnered the most criticism across the board. I don't know, maybe just on this channel, maybe nowhere else. I don't think that it's just been this channel though, from the little bits and pieces that I've seen. But the fact that she's like, yeah, of course we're not perfect. Yeah, we made mistakes, but these other influences. So let's talk about the influences. Yeah. Let's hear about those other influences, Elaine. What are those other influences that made a difference as opposed to your own lawyering
here that were beyond our control? And I think the social media, it was like a Roman Colosseum. It is the best way to describe the atmosphere here. And I have to believe that the jury, even though they're told not to go and look at anything, they have weekends, they have families, they have
they were not sequestered. They were not sequestered.
And the 10-day period we had, how could they not have been influenced?
But Elaine, for most people.
Okay, so yes, this is always a concern. It's always a concern when you have a jury in any case. You don't want them to be doing independent research. You don't want them to be learning about the case outside of, outside of the facts that are placed in front of them through the evidence. And in a case like this, it is definitely, I would say, much more tempting than in your average case to go and look things up, right? The jurors may not even have been intending to find stuff and just opened up their Facebook or their Twitter or what have you, any kind of social media platform, or popped on the news at the end of the day. Or walked into
a convenience store with the radio on, or
Yeah. They totally could have come across some information, but number one, we don't know that they did. Number two, we don't know that even if they did, if they were even influenced by that, because they may have just said, okay, there's a lot of influence, there's a lot of interest in this case. People have a lot of opinions about it. I have my opinions and I have my thoughts, and that's based on what I know. You know what I mean? Like it still doesn't necessarily mean that the that the jury did anything wrong, or that anybody did anything wrong. And at the same time, sequestering the jury.
For a civil trial for
requested
7 weeks.
Also,
Oof.
but that okay, but I would like to see Elaine pulling the filing where she requested sequestering the jury.
I'd love to see that filing.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, that would be very.
I doubt it. And in fact, going in, they probably assumed, hey, we've got the media on our side. It'll probably go well for us. We don't want them sequestered. If to the extent that they're going to fall into some media, we'd like it. That is, if I could never prove that, but I would bet that was their thought process going into this trial.
Yeah.
I mean, they must love the media because they're the ones that brought in the hashtags into the courtroom.
That's the other thing. That's the other big thing that she, of course, like, and it's funny because this is right after that question about what did you do wrong, Elaine?
Mm-hmm.
One thing they did wrong.
Maybe it was mentioning. Maybe it was you.
Bringing social media hashtags into the courtroom.
That was you. Maybe that was the problem.
That expert that did that was one of my favorite parts of the whole trial. Having a real uptight guy just utter the Amber Turd hashtag it's fantastic.
Amber Turd, justice for Johnny Depp. Arguably, they wouldn't have known about it if not for Amber Heard's legal team. So, Elaine, why are you complaining now? It's like,
plus, this is weak sauce stuff. You could make this argument in every jury tried in the United States. These admonishments are given to every jury. It doesn't even have to be a famous case. So, for instance, let's say you have an expert witness testify. The jurors aren't supposed to go home and look up the orthopedic surgery and try to figure it out themselves either. This is true in every freaking case in the United States. So tell us what they did wrong, not just that the possibility exists. It always exists.
Yes. And at the same time, this also ignores the fact that, and I talked about this on Breaking Points yesterday too, that, when you have a jury, a lot of times jurors don't want to end up on the jury, right? At least during the voir dire process or the jury selection process. They don't necessarily want to end up on the jury for a lot of reasons, and that's understandable. But typically when they do end up in that jury box, they take their role very seriously, is my understanding, because they understand that this is a serious process. This is our judicial system. They form a very important part, a very important role in our judicial system. And when they have given up 6 to 8 weeks of their lives to participate in this for really minimal compensation, right? Like they do get paid, but it's so small that it's a lot of them probably lost.
I mean,
it's something stupid small that it's essentially volunteer work, really. When we're talking about that compared to inflation, but when they have dedicated, because they've been voluntold to dedicate 6 to 8 weeks of their life to listen to evidence and testimony and to see evidence and to analyze it and interpret it and come to a conclusion that is very important to two other individuals, regardless of whether they're celebrities, regardless of whether they're, average Joes that are involved in a dispute. The fact that you have a case that comes to trial when it involves any amount of money, but this is a lot of money that's at stake. This is a lot of reputation that's at stake. This is stuff that is very serious. These are very serious allegations. So I think to just discount the jury from taking their role seriously is also, I think, very unfair to the jury. So, I mean, call me naive, right? Because it's Joe from Good Logic. He will come on here and say, there's absolutely no way that the jury didn't go and do independent research or whatever on this case, throughout either the weekends or the 10-day break in between. It's, but maybe I'm naive. But I do believe in people taking their roles seriously as much as they possibly can so that they do their job properly. And that they fulfill their role as well as possible. So anyhow, that's my take on that. But of course, unless there's proof that something actually happened, that a juror actually acted improperly, there's nothing there.
I think she's actually on the verge of an ethics beef right here, because you're really not supposed to impugn the jury for any good, in public like this. I'm not saying it. I'm not calling for it. I'm just saying she's approaching that line.
Yeah.
Of being called in by the licensing authority and saying, "Hey, knock this off."
Yeah.
Give her a lot more slack on that point, but still, she's an idiot.
People watching this trial, and a lot of people, as you know, got huge views. It just seemed to be so messy and salacious and so tawdry on both sides. And I think a lot of people from the outside looking in thought both of them were not telling the truth, and that they mutually abused each other. Do you not believe that was the case?
No, and that's one of the many misnomers. The way that Depp's team approached this was based on ignorance of domestic violence. It completely ignored the cycle of violence and just said, oh, she wouldn't have done this if he had been hitting her. That was their approach.
So you thought that they weren't fighting fair?
Correct. I don't think they were fighting fair.
Who's ignoring the cycle of violence?
Johnny Depp's legal team.
Yeah, but who's ignoring the cycle of violence? Elaine.
Yeah.
Elaine. Who's ignoring? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awkward. She knows her boat's sinking. You can tell that she knows this is not going well for her.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let's continue.
And you think Amber Heard is, in fact, a survivor of domestic violence?
Yes, I absolutely believe that. And there's a tremendous amount of evidence, much of which did not come into this trial, did come into the UK trial. We even had more evidence. We had medical records. We had mental health records that went back to 2012 that were contemporaneous. We had text messages from Mr. Depp's assistant saying, when I told him that he had kicked you, he cried. So,
Elaine, do we need to have a conversation about hearsay? Do you not understand hearsay?
No,
because you certainly are representing to the world that you don't understand hearsay.
I mean, hearsay is complicated, even for lawyers, but still.
Sure. What if
she also won't concede mutual abuse, despite the fact that her client testified to hitting Johnny Depp and many other things? But just a clear-cut testimony of "I hit you," and the tape was played repeatedly.
Yeah. I would like to say, Elaine, what, if anything, do you know about hearsay? Because if you do, then you understand that text message from Stephen Deuters was kept out because of hearsay. And why is hearsay kept out? Because it's unreliable. It is unreliable as testimony or evidence. So it's essentially playing phone tag. Okay. Anyhow. That one's just particularly frustrating to me because it's like she tries to point to that as a smoking gun of like, oh, Stephen Deuters, he texted her that when I told him that he had kicked you or whatever, he cried. There are so many issues with that. He could have been placating her. He could have been. I mean, here's a question. If she so wanted that testimony to come in, why didn't she call Stephen Deuters to the stand to do a direct examination of him? Elaine, I have questions. Why didn't you call him to the stand? If that was so crucial to you, why didn't you call him to the stand? Maybe you couldn't have gotten the text messages in. Maybe you could have for purposes of impeachment, because if he said something differently, then you bring that in for impeachment. That would have gotten around the whole hearsay problem. Elaine, let's talk about your responsibilities during this trial.
The judge only gave us 61 hours, Beanie. Also, how much time do I have left? 6 minutes? Oh, this is all right.
Alrighty. And then here's a question in the chat. Didn't they kick out Deuters' wife so they couldn't call him in to testify? No, they still could have called him in to testify. Those are two different people, two different witnesses.
They are different people, yes.
So you can still call him. They could have called him in because he was on one of the witness lists.
I have no idea, but my best guess is they did contact him prior to trial. They heard the rest of the story. It was not helpful to their case, and they decided not to name him as a witness. I have no idea, but that's my best guess.
That sounds like something a lawyer might do.
Yeah.
Also, a lawyer might, for example, have a deposition of their purported expert, and might realize their purported expert maybe isn't the best for the stand, but not.
Oh Lord,
not call them.
That guy.
So, yeah. All right. Let's continue. There's only about 30 seconds left.
Maybe that was a mistake. Did you call the wrong doctor? Is that possible? Is that one of the mistakes? Did you really screw that up? How bad does this go, Elaine?
All righty. Okay, next one.
How is she today, Elaine? How is she today? What is her next move?
She's right. Well, her next move is appeal. There were a number.
Heartbroken.
She is heartbroken. And one of the first things that she said when she came back from the verdict, when we went into the conference room, was, "I am so sorry to all these women."
She said that?
Yes, she felt.
She should be sorry. She should be sorry to the real DV victims out there, because she has made a bad name for female DV victims, or survivors, I should say. She has absolutely put a bad name, and as Natalie Whittingham Burrell in her Medium piece, as she rightly pointed out, the bad faith actors will try to take advantage of that. Sure, absolutely. I think that, but as far as the real DV survivors out there in the world, Amber Heard's case does not make their stories any less credible, or their cases any less credible. It does, but also this case, this verdict, this result, it does give male DV survivors a fighting chance. I think that because a lot of people who hadn't really thought about male domestic violence victims or survivors, like people that are men, this has been a very illustrative case to a lot of people to say, okay, I can see how this can happen. So
there seems to be this underlying implication or underlying belief or whatever it is inside of a lot of these articles that the Me Too movement is apparently so fragile that if you even expose an actual liar, the entire thing collapses. So there seems to be some sort of conceit or some sort of belief that, any sort of light that exposes any falsehood would cause the entire thing to collapse. I mean, on some level, why are the people writing these articles suggesting that the movement is built on such fragile foundations that it can't bear any scrutiny? I mean, they treat it as a house of cards almost, and it's frustrating because there are so many true survivors out there. We've heard from so many of them in the chat who have told their stories, and a lot of these articles are treating women in general, or DV survivors, or the movement, or some combination thereof, as fragile things that can't bear any scrutiny, no matter how legitimate. Am I making any sense at this point?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay,
I want to make sure that I didn't go too off a rail there somewhere.
Right, and I, and just to clarify, there have been some really good results that have come out of the Me Too movement. Harvey Weinstein's prosecution in New York, for example. Larry Nassar, for example. Those are some cases that where women had been trying to have their voices heard on some very egregious cases for years and years. And finally, they were able to have their grievances heard, have their claims investigated, and then ultimately get justice. That was something that happened. And that those have been some, I think, pretty objectively good results. Like, you don't have to be in one camp or another to look at those and say, yeah, yeah, these guys really did some terrible things to a lot of people. And now they are no longer getting away with it. Those are good results. But to say that this movement is going to cease to exist because a bad actor is being pointed out within the movement, it just shows that what needs to happen is, I don't know, some amount of vetting process before you just decide to run with someone's allegations. Maybe stop and think and question, like we don't want to just blindly throw our support behind someone just because they make a claim. Anyone can make a claim. Anyone can file a complaint and file a lawsuit, right? But the legal process is all about parsing through the facts and the evidence and the testimony so that you can come to hopefully the correct and the true result. Okay. Let's finish this out, and then we got to do some super chats, and then I'm going to have to head out of here in a bit.
Like she had let down all of these women because she had more evidence than most people do, and yet they still didn't believe her.
Elaine Bredehoft, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. We'll be right back.
So
she had more evidence than most people do. Just sounds so ridiculous as an attorney. You just need enough evidence to prove the elements of your case. That's what you need. It's not like, oh, I've got a truckload of evidence. I mean, do you have enough to sway the finder of fact or not? That's it. That's what you're looking for.
That is what you need. That is what you need. Yes. Mike the Dad Crosby says, question, what about the evidence in the UK, especially AH's, that was not cross-examined? Didn't she not have evidentiary bars she did not have to meet because she was not an actual party? Yes.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. That's one of the reasons why the UK judgment is, in my opinion, less credible and less of a, it's not really exactly a gold standard, in my opinion. This one in particular, I'm not saying that UK judgments or trials in general are like that. I would never denigrate a whole legal system, but that particular case, yes, there were so many things that happened in that case, and that was one of them. The fact that she was not cross-examined. Cross-examination is so important in a trial because that's how you really test someone's narrative, is by asking them questions, watching them squirm, watching, seeing how much their narrative holds up to pressure. It's an uncomfortable place to be. Yes, of course. No one likes to be cross-examined, but it's there for a reason. So yeah. Macro Mage says, could Elaine even potentially get her own defamation for what seems like misrepresenting and outright misstating fact and trying to demonize JD's team, not to mention connected to trials that don't relate? Well, this was something that Ian pointed out on Twitter, that it was very interesting that she's acting as an agent of Amber Heard. Apparently. And she's doing a lot of what Adam Waldman did during the Sun trial, right? It tracks actually very, very closely. Whether any of the statements that she's made can really be nailed down as defamatory as statements of fact. I don't know exactly. Like I would maybe want to go back and rewatch these interviews a couple more times to see if I can pick out something. But it is very interesting that she's acting in a very similar function, actually the exact same function that Adam Waldman was, and also talking to the press like Adam Waldman was. And there's a possibility, if we look through some of these statements for possible defamation, there's a possibility that she could get nailed for defamation by implication.
Yeah. Well, she didn't mention him by name, right? So
yeah. So that would be very, very interesting to see that as well. But I don't know that there's any intent to continue with more litigation. Litigation can really take up your entire life very quickly and very easily. And from what it looks like, Johnny Depp probably is much more interested in just continuing on with his life after this as much as he possibly can. Cynthia Glasson says, the problem with the Me Too movement is that it has now become less about balancing the scales than tipping them.
Yeah.
If the prominent, voices that are talking about how this impacts the Me Too movement in such a terrible way are to be believed, it would seem that would be the case. William Kelly says, question, have you talked about how Amber Heard's team most likely contacted the wrong David Spiegel? Stanford's DS seems to be the one they really wanted. If that's the case, I wonder, do you guys think that would be potential malpractice?
That is one hell of a massive fail, because they would have to have not noticed that at so many points along the way.
Right.
That it was the wrong person.
Right. Getting a report.
One hell of a fail.
Yeah. Deposition, the whole thing. Right.
So that would.
Okay, this is the guy we bet. Yeah. Okay.
Oops.
That would be very interesting. Hey Rob, how's it going?
Hey guys.
Hey Rob, what's happening?
What do you think if they contacted the wrong David Spiegel? Do you think that could possibly be malpractice?
You mean I saw that rumor. Are we really suggesting that that's an actual possibility? That's really possibly the case?
I mean, that's a pretty big fuck up.
I've only heard from people just, noting that there's a similar David Spiegel across the country.
I mean, I saw like a TikTok or some video about it, but if that really was the case,
that's a big fuck up.
That's not small.
You never noticed.
That's how big is Elaine's liability policy? Like at that point in time, is there a cap on it? And does she go after one of them or all of them? I mean, oh my God.
Yeah. Yes.
It happens to everyone. It happens to every lawyer once in a while, right? You call it just the completely wrong witness.
And it's not like it's I mean, it's not like it's a Bob Jones, like Dr. Jones. Like no, David Spiegel. Like
yeah.
It's not
it's not strange, but it's not super, super common.
No.
Yeah, it's not the most common name. That
if they screwed that up,
kind of narrow things down.
Never hire that law firm for anything ever.
I don't think anyone would. I mean, so people have made comments about like, isn't this going to kill Elaine's reputation? Isn't this going to kill Elaine's reputation? No, but something like this would.
Yeah. Don Hinton, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. Says, still catching up. Looks like TL picked on you instead of EDB because she thought you were an easier target, but found out pretty quick that EDB wasn't the only badass lawyer on YouTube. By the way, you look good in purple hair too. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But I will say, I am no longer allowed to touch my hair, according to my hairstylist, who's been doing my hair since high school, because every time I do, I end up screwing it up. In college, I had an unfortunate event with some sun-in, which is if you're not familiar, it's a product that is intended to, like, you put it in your hair and then you go out in the sun and then it lightens or whatever. I used way too much of it and it turned horrible. She ended up having to like cut it pretty short, actually, to like kind of save whatever she could. And she was like, you're no longer allowed to do that. So
the sun-in incident, as it came to be known.
Yes.
Are you going to dye your hair blue to join Emily here with the purple?
Oh boy.
No. I think I'll keep it to blonde. I'll keep it to blonde. That's fine. But Don, I really appreciate that. And thanks for calling me a badass lawyer. I do think that, sometimes it's easier to count out somebody who has a sunny disposition and maybe a bit of a California style, but I'm still a litigator. Keep in mind.
I like it. It grows on me. I'd be happy to have you on my legal team any day, Legalbytes.
Thank you. Cajun Horror Talk. Thank you so much for the generous super chat. Says, hey, Lita, I just wanted to say thanks to your fantastic fan base. They have been great and supportive to you all throughout the trial, and several even came over and subscribed to our channel after I offered to collab on a movie review with you. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And that is also a very subtle, friendly reminder to say that I need to respond to you. So I apologize. I'm going to make a note of that. I've got a number of things that are on my task list, and I will. I've got you on there. I'm going to make another note.
Speaking of collaborations, Alita, there's an upcoming collaboration, and it's entirely your fault. I don't know what I can say, but a certain Rob from Lawn Lumber might find himself in the Chicagoland area soon.
Ooh.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
We shall find out. And it's entirely your fault because this is how we know each other.
Yep.
Do you have parental supervision?
There's no parental supervision.
No.
We do have bail money lined up.
Okay. At least there's that. Well, give me a call if anything happens.
You might get that call, Lita.
Yeah, because wait, it'll be daytime. Yeah, that's perfect. So we'll get busted
well,
at
and
2
also
a.m. and
I'll be in the States this weekend, so anyhow, well, okay, all right, good to know about that. Just Me says, I remember the day Kurt begrudgingly went from Johnny can't win to she's the lying liar that lies, and he wasn't celebrating, he was depressed, as was most everyone who started believing Heard. # sometimes people lie. Yeah, it was. I do remember everyone was like, huh, so Kurt, is everything okay? Because you had to step away and kind of take a break for a little bit. Right, Kurt?
Yep.
Oh,
It was rough. I mean, like, no, I'm sorry. I was just there for a second, just remembering. It was very, very uncomfortable. It still is uncomfortable. Just like the cackling did it for me. Where she's just like in this mocking, cackling, taunting voice that just makes you want to use like imagery and verbiage from like plays or something, like you like harpy or siren or some other like
Shakespearean
something
monster.
Some sort of word along those lines, because it's just otherworldly. It was so disturbing.
It really was. Nancy
but
Dan
thanks for reminding me about it. That was good.
Nancy Dan says, uncivil law. Kurt, are you planning to cover the January 6th trial?
If there's actual trials, I'll probably cover it. They might mean hearings. With respect to the hearings, probably not. The reason is because the hearings are by their nature political, not legal. That isn't necessarily to say that there's anything wrong with them, because Congress is political. That's what they're supposed to do. The entire process is political. They breathe political. They are political. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really interest me, because I can probably tell you not only what everyone will testify to, but like what every senator will, every senator or representative will ask, and what the end conclusion will be, because it's all very predictable. It's all just paint by numbers. So it's not, the hearings aren't interesting to me, because it's a political process, and political processes aren't interesting to me as legal processes. So if there's a video trial of it, I might, of course, almost all those are federal court, District of DC, so that means no video cameras. So in the unlikely event that one of them happens to make it to video for some reason, sure, but probably not.
My law partner is going to be going to one of those trials next month. So she's actually going to go and watch it, because apparently the judge has been accepting. There's been plea agreements negotiated. The prosecutor offers up the plea agreement, states it to the judge, and the judge says, well, I can deviate up from this, and gives the maximum. Disregards the plea agreement, disregards the plea suggestion, and then just imposes a sentence that the judge, quote, feels is appropriate.
The law might allow for that, depending on the nature of the plea. I mean, of course, classically, sentencing is in the discretion of the judge. The nature of that discretion, I think, has been misunderstood, as we saw when still Judge Jackson, because she hasn't been elevated quite yet. Still, when Judge Jackson was commenting about her deviations on the CP related cases, because Congress gave this discretion, but they gave the discretion within the guidelines. And then when the guidelines got made discretionary themselves, they used the discretion that were meant to discretion within the guidelines, and now we're suddenly going outside the guidelines. So that seems to be what the law allows for. Someone mentioned the Proud Boys were charged. A lot of them were charged. Proud Boys were charged with sedition. Again, it's federal court, so there's really nothing for me to review. I guess I could go into DC in person and crash on Rob's couch. You want me to crash on your couch and we'll go watch some Proud Boy action in DC?
You could do that, as long as we kind of disguise ourselves a little bit. The last thing I want to do is get recognized in one of those hearings.
No, what is the official color of the Proud Boys? Like some yellow, black? You wear some yellow, black colors? That'd be great, man.
But yeah, Kurt, anytime you want to visit, you're
right,
more than welcome, buddy.
All right,
sounds good. Ashley Hamill says, question, did you see the tweet Lisa Bloom made? She told 2 of her sexual assaults cases that they could be sued now for speaking out, trying to scare women, said it was due to the trial and its outcome. Oh, I did see that one. And there's, Well, it's hard to respond to that without knowing the nature of those cases that she is advising, right? So every attorney is going to advise a client specific to their particular case. And so I want to be careful when I respond to that, because I don't know their cases. I don't know if they wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post. However, if they made a complaint to the police, that's not something that kind of a complaint is not going to be the basis of of defamation, right? Because there's something called litigation privilege. So you make complaints to the police that are, I mean, assuming that those are not false reports, and that those are not things that are going to be shown to be false reports. You can say that you make a report to the police and there's not enough evidence for them to prosecute. That's one thing, but if it's a Jussie Smollett kind of situation where you are making a report to the police that is proven to be false, that's a different kind of situation. And I think that's one of the unfortunate things about these kinds of tweets also, is that it's signaling to other women that maybe don't know as much about this particular case, maybe don't know as much about what happens in these kinds of DV cases also, that is basically saying, hey, you should be afraid. You should be worried. Don't speak out about your DV. That's the worries that, like, actually those kinds of tweets, if anything, are the ones that are maybe going to be chilling women's speech and chilling women from coming forward, and men for that matter, by the way, because, DV involves men and women. Linda Laughlin says, question, if AH appeals, can the appeal court overturn the $2 million and give it to Johnny? In Canada, the appeal court can be good to the client appealing or can be bad. Well, Johnny's side can come up with arguments as to why it was improper for them to come to the conclusion that they did as far as Amber Heard's win.
I've got 4 for Johnny Depp. I've got 4 grounds of appeal for Johnny Depp.
Run through them, Kurt.
Okay. Let's see. All right. That the statements as made are not sufficiently different from what the evidence reasonably shows as to constitute damages and defamation. It's basically a variant on the idea of the pleaded truth is not sufficiently different from the actual defamation as to be awardable in damages. So that's an idea. Second one, that he wasn't acting as an agent, in fact. Third, that malice is impossible to prove because Johnny Depp doesn't actually know, nor is Johnny Depp recklessly disregarding. So you can't find any actual malice from him imputed down to go to it. Adam Waldman doesn't actually know, and he took into cognizant quite a lot of information. So how can you show reckless disregard as a matter of law because of all the information that he took into consideration? So actual malice can't be proven as a matter of law. And the fourth element is that the entire scope of the agency, assuming he was acting, oh no, that's a different one too. That's the fifth one. The entire scope of the agency is ill-defined and undefined by law. It's all speculative. And even assuming he was acting as an agent, what is the other one?
Privilege?
Well, there's privilege. Privilege is an issue too. Damn, I lost one. Okay, well there were 4, and then I came up with the 5th one, and I lost it. But there's 4 or 5 different grounds of appeal that I've spotted.
Okay, cool.
If I figure out the 5th one while we're talking, I'll let you know. All right,
sounds good. Just Myers' question: how can they appeal with the argument that the jury was influenced by someone when they introduced numbers or hashtags in the court, and Amber Heard constantly inviting them to look her up online?
I don't think that's a grounds for appeal anyways. I think it's an improper argument on appeal. I mean, that's proper for motion to reconsider, but I can't see you making the argument on appeal because this record is devoid of any facts that there was any jury manipulation.
Right. And so I think that's more of an argument for the Court of Public Appeals or Court of Public Opinion. Shempasta says, does it not seem like AH legal team is accusing JD's legal team for unethical behavior when AH legal team is the one doing the unethical stuff? It does seem that way. It does. Yeah. Abdullah Pervez says, or Preve maybe, says, can JD/AT ask the jury/judge?
Oh yeah, he can't act as an agent. That's the fifth one. He can't act as an agent as a matter of Virginia law. No, I told you I'd get there eventually. No, I wasn't kidding. I was going to let my mind work until I got there. No, he can't act as an agent as a matter of Virginia law because he's an independent contractor. Only an employee can act as an agent of the employer. He's not an employee. The judge's determination that apparently he's acting in this employee-like status because he's been employed for a number of years on multiple different matters is not tenable under the law, because under Virginia law, lawyers in particular are independent contractors, so he can't be an agent as a matter of law. So there's a fifth ground of appeal. I'm sorry, you can go back to whatever you were talking about now. I figured it out.
So yeah, can the jury be asked why they came to the conclusion that they did? They can. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard can't really be the ones to ask them personally, because they're, or at least it's not a good idea for them to do it. Most likely what's going to happen is, I think that at some point one of the jurors is going to come out and talk to the media, and they are going to probably talk about, what happened back in the back room, where they talked about it, and how did they come to the conclusion that they did.
Unintentional mic drop moment by me.
Alrighty. Tom, the hashtag still life says, I've noticed that all hostile age support base their knowledge on articles and Twitter threads from the journalist Michael Hobbs. Have you seen it? What's your opinion on his views? I don't remember. I probably have come across it, but I don't remember his statements on it. But it wouldn't surprise me if people that are supporting Amber Heard are basing their information off of those headlines and Twitter threads. Next one. Jenny Jerez 7 says, what do you think about inputs of so-called lawyers, especially the law boy on Twitter? They did not watch the same trial, or they didn't watch the trial at all. I don't know. I mean, I saw that Natalie was interacting with law boy on Twitter. I didn't track the full argument between them, but I don't know that they were watching the full trial, if they did, or if so, I don't know. It is possible for lawyers to come to a different kind of conclusion. Possible. Doesn't mean that I agree with them. Leanne G says, I saw Camille made partner. What are those other titles, i.e. counsel and staff attorney? So of counsel means that that's somebody who's basically like an independent attorney that's been brought into the firm to basically like counsel them on certain cases. Usually it'll be for like a limited number of cases. A staff attorney is someone who is not in a partnership track. Like they're hired by the firm, but they're in a separate track than like a normal associate attorney who's trying to make partner of the firm. What, if any, says, what does it mean to make partner? Also, can you explain how it happened so quickly in what Hogue termed an off-cycle mid-year promotion? Go Stevie. So probably, I mean, because usually you'll find out you make partner, I think like at the end of the year, I guess. It's unusual for someone to get a promotion like in the middle of the year, when, especially at a bigger firm, they tend to be quite administrative about that kind of stuff. They'll review all of your work from the previous year and whatnot, and go over pros and cons, things you did well, things you didn't do well. This is what I understand from other people that have been in big law. I've never been in big law myself, but this is just what I understand.
I mean, it's also corporate restructuring. Like it essentially, when you make partner, you become an equity holder in the company, and they have to do a bunch of tax filings and different documents so they like to do it at one time a year. But if there's a big enough case.
Yeah,
you got to make her partner, because I mean she's getting offers from everywhere. You got to make her super partner, make her double partner. I don't know what you got to do to retain her. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Give her that equity.
I think they realize that.
What equity you have? I don't know. Me. That's how about nothing?
Star power. I have the I am the goddess of thunder, so I have the equity of the skies. Neth Star says, question: any reason or strategy why Elaine and not Rottenborn doing the press runs for AH? He was always a stronger talker in the AH team. I'm thinking the same thing. Maybe because he's like, I don't want to, because we shouldn't be talking to the media right now.
I mean, I have an opinion about it. Elaine has just shown herself to be a fanatic. She's no longer an advocate. She's a fanatic. Mr. Rottenborn, I can give him a lot of leeway because he was an advocate. He said things that we thought were not just borderline, but a little bit over the line, but he did so in his capacity as an attorney arguing a case.
Yes.
Elaine went out, and she went out as a fanatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife runs into my room, says they're talking about how to make partner in Big Law, and you need to get on there.
Yeah. If she wants to be partner in LawTube, it's available. I'm just saying.
This is what I was told. So, are we talking about Camille?
Rick.
Yes.
Yes.
Please tell us about Camille and becoming partner and what it means.
Sure. I actually had a tweet on this because people were bugging me about it, asking me politely about it. Bugging is too strong. And I tweeted out, I said, well, this is a remarkable because it's out of cycle. Because partnership's a tax situation, right? What is making partner means? It means what it says on the tin. It means having an equity stake in the profits of the enterprise going forward, which if you've ever done tax or entity structuring of any kind, is best done essentially at yearly breaks or quarterly breaks in a pinch, right? So when laterals come in, when you sneak away and grab that guy from Skadden or you take somebody from Latham Watkins, you can bring them in straight as partner, and that can work because it's essentially it's a sea change in what your partnership represents. But ordinarily, when people are already working there, you do the election in December, and then they're officially the partners January 1st. So that's how it happened for me. It was I think it's my 9th year out of law school where I'm named equity partner. And then we can talk about the difference between equity and non-equity if you want as well. And then the January 1 date of that next year, I'm formally partner, and they announce it to everybody, and it's grand things, and we go to dinner and we have fun. And then I decide on my exit strategy to starting my own law firm. That's how it went down for me. But that's the process, right? And so what was happening with Camille Vasquez, so she's in year 12, right? And if you look at her biography, you say, well, 12 years is a long time, Rick, and it is. It's not that unusual for Big Law to have a 10, 11, or 12-year partnership track. But more importantly for her biography, she was in a different law firm. So she's what we call a lateral. And when you lateral over to another big law firm like Brown Rudnick, you essentially negotiate as you come in what kind of credit hours you're going to get, right? For people who have transferred universities or otherwise. What kind of credit am I going to get for working at this other law firm? And if they're big, snooty law firm, they say, those guys, we're not giving you credit at all. You're starting at year 1, or we're going to split it in half, or whatever, or you're high leverage and we really want you, or God, we need a body on this deal we're working on. So what do you need? You want 3 years? You want 5 years? That's fine. So Camille comes in and was at a different law firm for some period of time. Because they are a big law firm, they don't say exactly what the other law firm was or where she came from. We wouldn't want to give any extra branding to anybody else. So she's working somewhere else. She laterals over, and now she's made partner. End of year 12 would have been kind of a standard timeline anyway, without a national public story. So I think this is essentially accelerated from what would have been December. Still obviously a big deal. They don't actually state that it's an equity partnership, but I think it would be at that time frame. And so, I think she'll be participating in the profits of the company. Now, that doesn't mean equally. For anybody that thinks if there's 30 partners, that means it's 1/30th to all. No, that's not how it works. It's just like owning stock or other interests in a large enterprise. You start out on the bottom of that list and you work your way up. But obviously well-deserved. I do have some experience with both partnerships at Big Law and how that track kind of gets moved around depending on what they want to do.
Yep, exactly. And just so you guys know, 5-minute warning, I'm going to have to dip out of here because I do have an appointment. So whatever super chats are not addressed. What's that?
I said, perfect. I just skied in. I just parachuted
exactly.
Said, here's how partnership is.
So whatever super chats we don't hit, I will be finishing up probably later today. I'll just do a quick super chat catch up stream. So I apologize to people that are not going to have it addressed during this stream, but we will for sure today. Because I do have an appointment that I would like to keep. But yeah, so 5-minute warning on that. Muffin Sturt says, hi, I'm not trying to start a controversy, but I personally think Rottenborn should leave his current firm and join Team Depp to save his career. Well, first off, it's I think a little bit late for that, for him to join Team Depp is what I mean. Because the case is over. Of course, this is an appellate case, but at the same time, I don't think that he needs to save his career. Elaine, on the other hand, she continues to flail about. It's a little bit of a different sort of case, but I think that he did a good job. I think even though he had a case that was not a winning case, he still did a good job. He did a very competent job and on a very difficult one at that. 2012 Jameson says, I sent you a DM about a vet who was arrested for self-defense. Can you help me get in touch with Andrew Branca, Law of Self-Defense? Thanks. Sure. Yeah, of course. Thank you for pointing that out to me. For sure. Alyssa Mayer Wood says, have you guys talked about the article that said that Jason Momoa actually testified? Talk about not watching the trial. I know. Like, that is such an egregious, like they could even just look at the witness list and see that he wasn't on it.
Did you even see the video? It's a picture of a TV, like it's a drawing of a TV behind the witness stand with a bottle of water. It's the craziest thing. Yeah, I covered it. It's the title on headlines is LA Times spoofed.
Wasn't it within like 24 hours of Taylor Lorenz making her dumbass comment?
Oh yeah, it was a hell of a weekend.
Like, just, yeah. How wrong can MSM get?
King Bob says, question, have you seen YouTuber Parody Whitney? She has pro Johnny, anti-Amber parody videos. I may have. A lot of folks have sent all kinds of parody videos and stuff that have been really funny. Wendy's Cafe says, I took the whole piece to mean she's jealous of the amount of money you made during the trial. People gave money to support the streamers we like out of kindness, not because we had to screw her and the horse she rode in on. I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people have pointed out to me, when I went on Breaking Points, Crystal made that point too, that she's like, by the way, why is it suddenly wrong for you to make money from making good content when the traditional media has been making money off of content? Don't know if it's good or bad, but content for a long time. I mean, that's the business that they're in, right? It's a business.
That's the model.
They
don't like competition. You know this.
And we do hawk likes and subscribes. I never hawk the super chats. Never do. Never have. Never will. So I appreciate all of the super chats and super thanks and super stickers that people send our way. I love it. I love that people become YouTube members, patrons, patron supporters, local supporters. I appreciate the hell out of every single one of those. And and at the same time, I don't want to ever make people feel like they're pressured to do that ever. J. Natalie Schmitz says, will any of you write an op-ed in response to this bull? I've been supporting papers, but can't anymore. Thank you for legit content. Well, Natalie tried.
Natalie wrote one.
Her piece was not accepted. Unfortunately, that's their loss, in my opinion. But that would be interesting. Maybe we should all start writing things to try to get published in the wake of some of these.
Realistically, it isn't every day an op-ed.
I guess so.
Isn't when we make a video, an opinion editorial about what's happening out there?
That's
fair.
We
have a different media format, but
that's
we're
fair.
giving
But
our opinions a lot.
It's also nice to say that you've been published. Like my tweets have been published.
your videos are published. It's
That's
still
true.
publication. It's outward speech.
Yeah.
It is wild when they pick up tweets, though, isn't it? Because some of those are not necessarily the most grammatical or well thought out. Not yours, just in general, when somebody picks up a tweet.
Yeah. Rhea B says, thank you all so much for covering the defamation trial. I was looking for the truth, and I, along with everyone else, clearly saw and heard who was the abuser. Yes, exactly. Thank you. And thank you for watching with us. We all were on this massive journey together. Shimpasa says, is it common in law to copy the other side?
It depends in what sense.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, probably.
In brief work, it's like extremely common.
You don't reinvent wheels.
Even in litigation practice, I mean, I model my practice after all of the other attorneys that I've come across for the years that I've been there. I mean, if you don't learn from the people around you, you can't grow.
Exactly. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. When you see things that are working well, you employ those good tactics and those good arguments and good legal research when you come across it. There's nothing that says that any of that would be wrong. So anyhow, and there we go. We are at about 3.5 hours. I got to get going because I've got an appointment, but I appreciate everyone for joining me for this. And this has been lovely. And so we've still got like 21 super chats here that have been saved. I will be getting back to them later on today at some point before the day is out. I'm going to come back to it. So if you guys want to join me for super chat, catch up and hang out, then we'll for sure do that then. But otherwise I've got to I've got like I said, I've got an appointment to keep. But thank you for everyone for joining me on the panel to talk about the media response to everything. Thank you to everyone in the chat for hanging out and for engaging. Thank you to everyone who has liked the video, subscribed to all of the channels. Everybody's linked in the description below. And thank you to everybody that has super chatted too. I appreciate all of it. I appreciate all of it. So on that note, we'll do a catch up stream so that we can get all of these in today. And other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.